Chapter 1679. The moment the White Armor Emperor said to escape, Han Fei was stunned. Do you know that if you escape, the White Shell Royal City will really be gone? At least half of the Grand Monarchs of the White Shell Royal City would be eliminated, wouldn't they? When the White Armor Emperor said that he was going to escape, Han Fei's first reaction was not to stop him but to speak to peaceful tranquility and the Insect King telepathically, stall the projection of the White Armor Emperor. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei turned around and launched a thunderous attack. At the same time, Han Fei's sky-hanging mirror reflected the sky. The White Armor Emperor of the White Shell Kingdom was defeated and fled. The Waterwood Sky and the Enyang Sky all charged into the sea. Celestial Venerable Waterwood, do your best to stall Venerable Sea Demon. Peaceful added, hold them all. Don't let any of them escape. Once the commander-in-chief fled, the morale of the army would collapse. No matter what kind of battle it was, the situation was always the same in a confrontation between two armies. Therefore, when Han Fei announced that the White Armor Emperor had fled, the entire Shuemu sky went crazy. Kill! Buzz, 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 some of the insect race members flew into the sky while some fled to the bottom of the sea. The sky race covered the sun and sky as they charged towards the sea. The Enyang heavenly human tribe shouted, "Frost Marshal is invincible!" as they charged into the battlefield. In just a few seconds, the two projections of the White Armor Emperor died in Han Fei's hands. Only then did Peaceful turn around and ask Han Fei, "Where is Her Majesty?" "I'll be back soon." When Peaceful heard that, she let out a sigh of relief. Then, she angrily charged toward a siren Venerable. Han Fei, on the other hand, summoned the projections of the 9 Venerables and chased into the void. When the old turtle controlled the White Armor Emperor, it must have consumed a lot of energy. What needed to be supplemented still needed to be supplemented. After all, the old tortoise was now his servant. After a while, from the battle between Han Fei and the White Armor Emperor to the time when the White Armor Emperor saw that the situation was hopeless and had to flee, it took less than 80 seconds in total. The Life Queen didn't return until 18 seconds after the White Armor Emperor escaped. This also meant that the Life Queen must have paid a huge price to be able to return more than 10 breaths ahead of time. By the time the Life Queen returned, in just a few dozen breaths, cracks had appeared in the sky one after another. On the way, the Life Queen also killed 2 Venerables from the White Shell Kingdom. The White Armor Emperor fled, and the 50,000 soldiers of the White Shell Kingdom and the experts of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree began a large-scale battle. However, the King of White Shell Capital City had already fled, and the Exalt Realm experts were fleeing in all directions. They were currently being chased frantically. The morale of the White Shell Royal City's army collapsed, and they began to flee in all directions. Unexpectedly, apart from a few Venerables of the Cloud Sea Divine Tree who killed some explorers, no one cared about those who were below the explorer level. By the time the Life Queen returned, less than 10,000 of the 50,000 soldiers had escaped. The Life Queen shouted, "All Venerables, heed my command. Do not kill sea demons below the explorer level. These sea demons will be the whetstone for Shui Mu Heaven's rise." The perspective of experts was naturally different. The Waterwood Heavens had won a great victory. Billions of creatures had slaughtered their way into the vast sea, and the sea demons that had been left behind could not escape. If he could escape, he definitely wouldn't think of taking revenge for the time being. They didn't have the ability or the courage to do so. After all, even their king had been defeated. Half a day later, somewhere 500,000 kilometers away from the Waterwood Heavens, in a secret array, Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, how's your recovery going?" The old turtle said, "Not so fast. Even with the corpses of these Venerables, it may take 10 years. Han Fei sneered. "Can't you enter my gourd space? Can't you just cultivate there?" The old turtle said, "I can only watch that world, but I can't enter it. That is your world. Only with your permission can outsiders enter it." Han Fei wondered if he could let the old turtle enter Forge the Universe. This time, there was a strange situation. Han Fei seemed to have realized that after the old turtle became his servant, he didn't need to consume a huge amount of resources and directly absorbed the old turtle into Forge the Universe. Han Fei immediately understood. It seemed that only by recognizing him as the master could he enter. However, if the 10 years were reduced to more than half a year, the old turtle could control the White Armor Emperor again. At that time, it would be the death of the White Armor Emperor. Therefore, Han Fei was not in a hurry. In the sky above the Waterwood Heavens, when Han Fei returned, he saw that the Life Queen seemed to have been waiting for him for a long time. The Life Queen threw a huge broken shell to Han Fei and said, "That royal sea white shell self-detonated. This large piece of shell and some broken flesh are all here, except for the 10,000 kilograms of flesh and blood that I gave to Jing Suzhen and the Golden Crow." Han Fei took it calmly. How many died? Han Fei knew that a total of 42 died, including those he killed. If there were no accidents, those who died should be on the Sea Demon Venerable's side. The Life Queen said, a total of 24 died on the White Shell Royal City. The Shuemu Heaven had 2 beginner venerables and 1 mid-level venerable, but they were killed halfway. The Life Queen seemed to be quite satisfied with this number. Han Fei frowned and said, 3 died? It seems that there will be a lot of follow-up battles. On the Sea Demon side there are still nearly 60? The Life Queen said, I have confirmed some of their hiding places. In the next year, at least 10 to 20 Sea Demon venerables will die. As for the rest, we can search slowly. Anyway, this sea area is only so big. Han Fei pondered for a moment and said, Count me in. I'll look for them myself. The Life Queen didn't know what to think of Han Fei now. When they first met, Han Fei was still pitifully weak. She could pinch him to death with one finger. Now, even if she took action, she wouldn't be able to kill Han Fei. Even so, Han Fei was only a half-king. Was he already a king? There was almost no way to fight this battle. The Life Queen said, Unfortunately, I'm still too late. As long as the White Armor Emperor doesn't die, the Shuemu Heaven can't explore on a large scale. Han Fei smiled and said, Half a year. Give me half a year, and I will find the White Armor Emperor. But when the time comes, the White Armor Emperor's corpse will belong to me. Han Fei didn't want a lot. If the White Armor Emperor died, the billions of creatures in the Cloud Sea Divine Tree would be able to go out. The sea was vast and there were countless resources. They would enter a period of rapid rise. However, he couldn't let the Shuemu Heaven take all the benefit. Therefore, Han Fei wanted the White Armor Emperor's corpse. The Life Queen was speechless. You still want the White Armor Emperor's corpse? Aren't you afraid that he will self-destruct? The power of a king's self-destruction may be beyond your imagination. Han Fei said, The White Armor Emperor is very timid. How many experts has he left behind in order to survive? Such a person weighs the pros and cons too much, and is too timid. Can he self-destruct? However, if he really self-destructs, the Shuemu Heaven must allow the humans of the Yin-Yang Heaven to come and cultivate. After all, Xue Fan and the White Armor Emperor died because of me. The Yin-Yang Heaven can't leave without any benefits. The Life Queen smiled faintly. Okay. I have no objection to the connection between the two realms. In your words, next we need to deal with the crisis in the cage. But half-kings are not allowed to come to the Yin-Yang Heaven. Of course, Han Fei knew about the crisis in the cage. However, hearing that the Life Queen seemed to acquiesce to the connection between the two realms, he immediately struck while the iron was hot. Okay, then the day the White Armor Emperor dies will be the day when the two realms are officially connected. As for whether the half-king would come to the Yin-Yang Heaven or not, it didn't matter. After old Han left, there were only 2 half-kings in the Yin-Yang Heaven. Half a year later, Han Fei silently came out of Forge the Universe. Luo Xiaobai, Zhang Xuanyu, and even the entire Thug Academy, no one had the time to pay attention to him. The reason was, everyone was busy going into the sea to kill enemies and hunt for treasures, to cultivate and improve. Naturally, no one had the time to pay attention to him. And in the Shuemu heaven, because too many experts had died, the spiritual energy here was richer and richer. Of course, there were actually a lot of scattered resources. In Han Fei's words, where there were sea demons, there were resources. Luo Xiaobai and the others had gained a lot in the past 6 months. The reason was that none of the venerable realm sea demons dared to come out at all. If they came out, they would kill them. There were nearly 100 venerables in the Shuemu heaven. And if the venerables didn't come out, few people could stop Luo Xiaobai and the others. In Forge the Universe, 8 years had passed. During these 8 years, Han Fei had learned the divine stab and the record of myriad Dao patterns again. Of course, Han Fei had also deduced the follow-up technique of the indestructible tyrant body. However, after deducing it in the demon purification pot, what he got was a new technique that made Han Fei very hesitant. This technique was as follows: Mysterious Divine Body, Venerable Level, Divine Quality, Introduction. This technique is not the follow-up of the indestructible tyrant body. The follow-up of the indestructible tyrant body must be comprehended by oneself. This technique is a technique to connect the body with the divine. By disintegrating the chaotic energy into the body, it will be absorbed by the body to cultivate the Taoist body. This technique ranks 5,609th among the 10,000 races in the sea. Its strength is immeasurable. Deduction. Unable to deduce first of all, Han Fei was sure that this was the mysterious divine body. It was definitely not a simple technique. The old turtle said that the 10,000 races in the sea numbered millions. It ranked more than 5,000, which was enough to prove the power of this technique. However, Han Fei didn't like it. If you give me a super body refining technique in the top 100, I can work hard and continue to cultivate like crazy. But you're going to give me a body refining technique that's worth more than 5,000 units? Even if I reach the peak, it would be impossible for me to become the peak combat power of the 10,000 races in the sea. Therefore, Han Fei decided not to cultivate it and wait. Have you come out of seclusion? Behind Han Fei, the Life Queen's voice suddenly sounded. Han Fei said lightly, "Yes. It's almost time. The White Armor Emperor should also die." The Life Queen said, "Are you sure you can find him? It's actually very difficult to find a king who hides himself. Besides, you killed 5.5 of the White Armor Emperor's projections. He should have lost a lot of strength now. It will be 100 years before he comes out of seclusion." Han Fei grinned and said, "Do you dare to let a king live in this world?" The Life Queen said, "Let's go. I have to try." Second update. Please vote. End of this chapter. Chapter 1680. No one knew about Han Fei and the Life Queen's trip, not even Peaceful. Peaceful was sent out by the Life Queen to hunt the sea demon Venerable half a day later. Han Fei and the Life Queen once again came to the Vortex Sea where Han Fei entered the Thunder Prison. Han Fei had felt that this place was weird. This place was connected to the Thunder Prison. So were these vortexes actually connected to the same place? Han Fei made up his mind. After this was over, he would give it a try. "It's this sea." The Life Queen was a little surprised. "I've been to these vortexes before. Back then, there were a lot of vortexes here, but now they have gradually decreased. Those that can be explored have basically been explored. As for the rest, they all have problems. I don't think any of them can be used." Han Fei was puzzled. "Problematic?" The Life Queen explained, "Some vortexes are connected to broken small worlds. Once you enter, you will fall into the endless void if you're not careful." Han Fei frowned slightly. However, when Han Fei was pointing with the nautical panorama, he definitely wouldn't make a mistake. And it was pointing to the vortex leading to the Thunder Prison that he had been to before. At this moment, he probably knew where the White Armor Emperor was. Han Fei said, "Since I've found this place, I can confirm that this path is absolutely feasible. Let's go." With that, Han Fei stepped into the vortex. The Life Queen was naturally not afraid of this vortex. Since she knew this place, it meant that she had been here more than once before. When the two of them were deep in the endless void, Han Fei was still rushing in a certain direction. This made the Life Queen quite curious. Why was Han Fei so sure that this place was safe? After a while, when a spot of white light appeared, the Life Queen said in surprise, "Exit?" Han Fei grinned. "That's it." Swish, swish. After a while, the two quickly got out of the exit. In the next moment, boom, 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 sounds could be heard as dozens of lightning bolts bombarded down. Both of them were blasted in the face. The Life Queen looked dumbfounded. The power of lightning. It's not a heavenly tribulation, but pure lightning, which contains limited power of the great path. Where is this? Han Fei didn't explain. In Forge the Universe, the nautical panorama didn't turn. Sure enough, as he expected. Han Fei grinned. "Follow me." The Life Queen was suspicious. Han Fei seemed to be very familiar with this place. It didn't seem like it was his first time here. He even knew the way. Both of them quickly left the Thunder Prison through the teleportation array. When he reappeared, he found that the entrance to the forbidden secret realm of the White Shell Kingdom was gone, and there was no trace of an array. Obviously, the White Armor Emperor had obliterated the entrance to the Forbidden Land trial field. Without the mark, Han Fei didn't know how he got here. Fortunately, Han Fei found another entrance to the Thunder Dungeon. Otherwise, he might not be able to find the White Armor Emperor. In the Sea of Gods and Demons, the White Armor Emperor was lying there. In the corresponding cage, Old Goat had moved to another place. Now that he was guarding this place, who knew what the other party's motives were? After more than half a year of recuperation, the White Armor Emperor's anger finally stabilized. However, he made a decision that even he himself found frightening. He was determined to walk down a new path, a path of blood sacrifice that devoured living beings. In this battle, the White Armor Emperor found that his means were too shallow. All along, he had thought that he was smart enough, strong enough, and resourceful enough. However, after seeing Xue Fan's heart-devouring power, he dispelled this idea. That kind of courage to devour a clan moved him. If Xue Fan ignited the evil thoughts in the White Armor Emperor's heart, then Han Fei would be the fuse. This fuse ignited the White Armor Emperor's desire for power, to the extent that he would do anything to obtain it. However, this desire had just been ignited. The White Armor Emperor, who was cultivating, suddenly came back to his senses. The next moment, the White Armor Emperor looked surprised. Han Fei. Muwuhua, the White Armor Emperor, was very surprised by the arrival of Han Fei and the Life Queen. However, he quickly reacted. He looked at Han Fei, and the corners of his mouth trembled. "So, the problem with the Sea of Gods and Demons restriction was caused by you?" Han Fei grinned and said, "Ah, you found out?" The White Armor Emperor drew out a round machete and held a shield in one hand, ready to fight. Han Fei grinned, and two white machetes also appeared in his hands. However, these two machetes were not ordinary weapons, but the blades of hope that could not be damaged. After all, he was facing a king, and he was only half a king. What if it was a life-and-death battle? Snowmorn should be easily damaged, and the embroidery needle, although not weak, was not what he was best at. Then, the blades of hope became the best weapon. The Life Queen said leisurely, "White Armor Emperor, do you know that you will suffer today?" The White Armor Emperor chuckled. Do you really think you can kill me after joining hands?" The White Armor Emperor took the lead to attack. The shield flickered with green light as if infinite power was pushing in the sea, pushing the seawater into huge waves, which were as heavy as mountains. Puff, puff, puff. Demonic plants and vines were growing under the entire Sea of Gods and Demons. But in an instant, the violent sea was covered by demonic plants. On the other side of the cage, Old Sheep roared, "Retreat, all retreat. Abandon the defense here. There are kings fighting here." Old Sheep felt like he was going crazy. What on earth did Han Fei do outside? It had only been half a year. Why was there a battle between kings here? Lightning said in shock, "Old Sheep, is this place going to collapse? Are you sure this is a battle between kings?" Old Sheep roared, "Of course, I can't even tell this apart." The void within a radius of 1,000 miles was suddenly torn apart by countless cracks in the void. Xiong Chaoshui and the others who accompanied the defense looked at each other in shock. Mad Lion exclaimed in shock, "This thing, it can still unleash such a powerful attack from a distance? Is this king still a human?" In the sea of gods and demons, the two sides were fighting fiercely. The White Armor Emperor had lost 5.5 king projections, and his strength was already equal to Han Fei's. For the first time, Han Fei saw the Life Queen's combat weapon, which turned out to be a small wooden stick that was 1.5 feet long. There was also a small inch-long branch on the wooden stick. But this small wooden stick was completely controlled by Mu Wuhua with the power of her soul. In one breath, he hit the White Armor Emperor more than 800 times in a row, and this power forced the White Armor Emperor to retreat. After all, the Life Queen was in her peak state, and the White Armor Emperor hadn't recovered from his previous injuries. This time, he was injured again, and he was hit by the Life Queen and Han Fei in a row. Of course, he was in a bad situation. In less than 5 minutes, Han Fei didn't even use the Great Tao of Time. Under normal circumstances, Han Fei could maintain his current peak state for another 5 minutes. Even if the time was up, he could use the time reversal technique to restore his peak combat power. Han Fei asked, "Old Yuan, when are we going to make a move?" The old turtle said, "Wait, the energy in this space is limited. We have to consume all the energy in this space, so that he can only use his reserve power." Han Fei opened his mouth and swallowed crazily. "I thought the old turtle was talking about something important. That's all. With his current body, the power of the entire sea of gods and demons wouldn't be enough." Seeing this, the White Armor Emperor's expression changed drastically. However, he seemed to have made a decision and shouted, "Shell transformation." At that moment, the entire sky above the sea of gods and demons was shrouded by a layer of white shadow. "Ha ha! Han Fei, you destroyed the restriction of the sea of gods and demons, but have you ever thought about it? Is this my final trump card? This place is my origin sea." "Hiss!" the Life Queen exclaimed, "Not good. My power is being blocked." Even Han Fei felt that there was an inexplicable force that was actually obliterating his power. He felt that his power of the Great Tao might not be able to last 5 minutes. 10 minutes at most, and it would collapse. Han Fei's expression changed drastically. "The origin sea? How do I deal with this thing?" The old turtle said, "Don't worry. I said that although he can do a lot of things in the origin sea, he is not absolutely invincible. In this space, he can attack freely and indiscriminately. However, don't forget that the origin sea is also his Great Tao. Just break his Great Tao. Your little calabash can absorb my Great Tao, so it can definitely deal with this White Armor Emperor. Furthermore, even in the origin sea, I can still freeze his movement. As long as he shows up, it will be enough." Han Fei's heart did a flip. Demon Purification Pot. Absorb. Han Fei's wrist was hot, and he felt surging spiritual energy, mixed with a little bit of chaotic energy, drilling into his body. Sure enough, the old turtle had a deep understanding of the Demon Purification Pot. He knew that the Demon Purification Pot would take action in this situation. The Life Queen glanced at Han Fei in surprise. How can Han Fei absorb power so crazily in the origin sea? The White Armor Emperor separated Han Fei and Mu Wuhua. He just wanted to interrupt Han Fei's energy-swallowing action. However, as the old turtle said, as long as he showed up, it would be an opportunity. Han Fei shouted, "Old Yuan, soul lock, crack, crack, crack." 12 chains locked the white armor emperor again, fixing him in midair. In a flash, Han Fei flashed and appeared in front of the white armor emperor. The power of his soul controlled the infinity water to drill into the white armor emperor's body and dissipate. Heaven Gate. Divine Stab. Draw the knife, Kacha. Boom. The barrier blocking Han Fei and Mu Wuhua was opened. On Mu Wuhua's side, it had completely become covered in green, and the winding vines were all over the place. The barrier was opened, and the white armor emperor was nailed in the void. Without thinking, Mu Wuhua held the longbow in his hand, and a wisp of dark green liquid formed an arrow. Withering arrow. The thin layer of carapace on the surface of the white armor emperor's body showed signs of decay. Mu Wuhua shouted, "The armor has been broken. Let's break his body." Han Fei was slightly stunned. Seeing that the old turtle's soul-locking chains began to creak, he immediately shouted, "Explode!" Boom, Kacha! At that moment, the divine demon sea, which was the white armor emperor's origin sea, was full of cracks. The white armor emperor's body was dripping with blood, and his body was riddled with holes. In a second, the battle was reversed. The white armor emperor was dying, but he still had one breath left. But at the last moment, a small branch stretched out from between Han Fei's eyebrows and clasped this space. With force, he took out a shell phantom and pulled it back into the space between Han Fei's eyebrows. Mu Wuhua stared at the space between Han Fei's eyebrows in astonishment, and the old turtle shouted, "Go, go! His great path has been taken away by the gourd, and his origin sea is about to collapse." Han Fei, on the other hand, yelled at Mu Wuhua while using the void lines to hold onto the white-armored emperor. "Run!" Rumble in the sky above the waterwood sky, a blood-colored great path ran across the entire sky. A huge crack seemed to have been opened in the sky. At this moment, the white armor emperor died. The third chapter. Ask for votes. Tomorrow, the end of this scroll, end of this chapter. Chapter 1681. The most important reason for the white armor emperor's death was that this guy thought he could control everything by controlling Han Fei and the Life Queen in his origin sea. However, he didn't expect Han Fei to have a helper like the old turtle, nor did he expect Han Fei to have a treasure like the demon purification pot. It could be seen that the origin sea was not necessarily safe. It was like the Divine Sun's origin sea was also occupied by Xuefan. Of course, the white armor emperor's death was also due to the Life Queen's brilliant arrow. The corrosive power of the poison on the arrow could even break the defense of the white armor emperor, a king of shellfish. It could be seen how poisonous the poison was. The divine demon sea was the place where the white armor emperor's origin sea bordered the spatial valley in the cage. Therefore, when the white armor emperor died, although there was no exaggerated crack of the great path in the cage, there was a shocking crack in the void above the spatial valley. Of course, the ones that could be seen were limited to venerable ones. The entire Shuemu sky was in an uproar. It had only been half a year. Although there would be a venerable dying almost every month, such a big movement had never happened before. Someone sighed. Who died? Why is there such a big movement? This is even bigger than the death of a half-king, isn't it? Someone sneered. Have you ever seen a half-king die? Someone said, but this movement is indeed the most exaggerated celestial phenomenon known. Only a few venerable powerhouses looked at the void from afar with a sigh. Peacefulness murmured, this should be the legendary sign of the fall of a king. Lidaxian was chasing a peak-level advanced venerable sea demon. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but look strange and said in surprise, a king died? The white armor emperor died? Luo Xiaobai and the others were exploring the old site of the White Shell Royal City. Seeing this scene, they looked at each other in dismay. Zhang Xuanyu asked, did he kill a king? Lu Renquang asked, it's only been half a year. Zhang Xuanyu sneered. Why not? Why not? He is now an iron-head fish that can't be killed. Not to mention killing a king, I can even believe that he killed a king. Luo Xiaobai said lightly, leave him alone. The White Shell Kingdom's ley line is still there. This time, we'll intercept the ley line and increase our strength to the peak of the explorer level. Next, we should hunt sea demons and prepare to advance to a half-king. The Divine Demon Sea collapsed, and the passage to the Divine Demon Sea disappeared without a trace. However, the entrances to the other 3 forbidden grounds were still there. Han Fei looked at the entrance of the Demon Suppression Tower and thought to himself, this entrance was filled with void storms last time. I wonder how it is now. The broken corpse of the White Armor Emperor was collected by Han Fei. At this moment, Han Fei looked at the life. He looked at the Life Queen and said, and Venerable, I still have something to do. Facing the Life Queen, Han Fei was no longer as cautious as before. The Life Queen wasn't much stronger than the White Armor Emperor, so Han Fei wasn't afraid at all. This was the confidence he needed to become stronger. Fei was that he. King. King Si was, Li was, he Li was. Said. He Emperor. The Life Queen glanced at the Forbidden Land trial fields and didn't care. The White Armor Emperor had fallen. So what if these secret realms were left to Han Fei? From then on, there would be no enemies in the entire water-wood heaven. Billions of creatures on the Cloud Sea Divine Tree would rise rapidly. Okay. After the Life Queen left, the old turtle said, this White Armor Emperor is a bit weaker than I thought. However, it's not bad. An existence like him is the most common king in the Sea Region royal family. I can't say that he's not strong. He's just ordinary. If they are given a long time, they might have a chance to become emperors. However, he won't be too strong. And such a person has almost no chance of becoming an emperor. This time, the White Armor Emperor had fallen. The old turtle explained the White Armor Emperor's position in the Sea Region to Han Fei. He probably wanted Han Fei to know that he shouldn't be proud of killing a king. This was just an ordinary king. Han Fei responded, and with a thought, a projection of a peak-level venerable appeared in front of him. This projection of a peak-level venerable stepped directly into the Demon Subduing Tower. On the 7th floor of the Demon Subduing Tower, the projection of a peak-level venerable looked around and found that there were no sea demons being suppressed. However, in the blink of an eye, a silver light pierced at him. Clang Han Fei's projection naturally also had independent thought. This was also the power of a doppelganger. The projection drew a knife from the void and blocked it. And the opponent just attacked once and didn't need to attack again. Han Fei felt that he was the one who hit himself. That feeling was very strange. Yes, he saw an identical version of himself standing opposite him. And both of them felt that the one opposite them was himself. With a thought, the projection of a peak-level venerable dissipated, and a wisp of soul and surging energy were absorbed into the body of the doppelganger. With a click between the eyebrows of the doppelganger, its strength actually broke through and reached the demi-venerable realm. Han Fei grinned. I didn't expect to complete the last step of advancement in this way. Wow. My body is already a demi-king? Damn, it's a whole realm higher than a demi-venerable? Han Fei's doppelganger looked strange at this moment. All these years, he had been fighting all the way, comprehending and making breakthroughs in battle, but he lacked some opportunities. Therefore, Han Fei immediately understood the key to it. And after absorbing the projection, Han Fei in the Demon Subduing Tower also understood what had happened over the years. The big families were slaughtered, the 4 forces in the cage, and the White Shell Royal City were destroyed. It seemed that everything was so simple and so natural. In addition to reading the experiences of these years, Han Fei's doppelganger also comprehended some brand new techniques and combat skills. Some knowledge that he didn't know before was now instantly known. Immediately, an idea appeared in the doppelganger's mind. His body was going to lead the way. Yes, the reason why Han Fei stayed here after killing the White Armor Emperor was that he wanted to release his external incarnation. Otherwise, even if his doppelganger could come out on its own in the future, it would have to face the Whirlpool Sea. That was not something an ordinary demi-venerable could get out of. Han Fei waited for about half an hour outside the entrance of the soul-subduing tower, waiting for the doppelganger inside to absorb the memories and power of the projection. At this point, Han Fei fired a shot from the place where the projection had just landed. In the passage of the demon-subduing tower, a void turbulence appeared at the same time. The turbulence surged out, and a figure, holding two knives, stepped on a large array, and knocked over all the way. At Han Fei's current level, with the power of Tao, he could display the power of a king for a short time. It was possible to open the passage of the demon-subduing tower in a short time. When the doppelganger appeared in front of Han Fei, strangely, Han Fei's thoughts began to synchronize. The combat experience and battle comprehension of the doppelganger in the demon-subduing tower naturally appeared in Han Fei's mind. And Han Fei's combat experience and combat talent also appeared in the doppelganger's mind. In fact, when the two Han Feis stood together, they didn't look like two people at all, but like a mirror image of one person and himself. Almost in a few seconds, the memories of both sides were completed simultaneously. At this time, Han Fei also discovered a problem. The doppelganger couldn't have three great Daos at the same time, so he could only choose one great Dao. Han Fei frowned slightly. His comprehension of the power of great Dao was synchronized, but which great Dao to take? That was a problem. Now, the great Dao that Han Fei could take out were the Tianqi Great Dao, the Time Great Dao, the Yinyang Great Dao, the Road of Invincibility, and Jin Zhanghai's Metal Devouring Dao. The White Dharch Armor's Great Dao was absorbed by the Demon Purification Pot. In addition to these, the doppelganger couldn't inherit the Great Dao that his main body could copy out of nothing. Han Fei thought for a moment. In the end, he let his doppelganger study the Great Dao of space on his own using the closed distance technique. Han Fei felt that as long as he was given time, he could still figure out this Great Dao. The problem was that he had so many Great Daos that he didn't have time to delve into the Great Dao of space. If his doppelganger mastered this Great Dao, as long as the two met again in the future, their memories would merge, and his main body would master the Great Dao of space. How cool would that be? His doppelganger, who had just broken through to the demi-venerable level, still needed to consolidate its cultivation. At the same time, the massive resources in Forge the Universe could also be used for his cultivation. Since he hadn't left yet, he wouldn't let his doppelganger go out for the time being, lest it arouse unnecessary suspicion. Half a month later, Han Fei and the Life Queen summoned most of the people who were scattered overseas. This was Han Fei's opinion. Compared with temporary gains and losses, the matter of communication between the two worlds must be put on the agenda immediately. Han Fei was more eager to become a king now. At this level, he knew that only when he became a king would he feel secure. Otherwise, he would always be a caged bird in the cage of the Yinyang heaven and the Waterwood heaven. No matter how powerful he was just a stronger caged bird. In the past half-month, Han Fei had even tried to find a way out of the cage with the nautical panorama. Unfortunately, this time, the panorama didn't give an answer. Han Fei was even shocked to discover one thing. He couldn't even find the way to the cage from the Waterwood heaven. Previously, Han Fei and the old turtle had speculated that as one's strength grew, it would be more and more difficult to enter the cage. Entering the cage after reaching the King realm? That was almost impossible. Back then, Zhao Xianglong was able to enter probably because it was tens of thousands of years ago. It was too early, and the power of the cage wasn't as strong as it was now. Seeing that the Waterwood heaven was of no benefit to him, Han Fei naturally returned to the Yinyang heaven. He still had some things to arrange. After that, he had to find his own way to become a king. Chapter 1682. Nowadays, the Inyang heaven was developing like a raging fire. The city of Justice had become the second largest city in the Inyang heaven. The number of strong people in this city even exceeded that of the Thousand-Star City. Although Han Fei had not been here in recent years, Shueishenqi was still in charge of relevant affairs. For example, the 36 towns and the Scattered Stars Island had both set up independent teleportation arrays. The 36 towns and the Thousand-Star City had also set up independent teleportation arrays. As many as 36 ultra-long-distance teleportation arrays had also been set up between the Thousand-Star City and the Scattered Stars Island. It could be said that Shueishenqi's main job these years was to build roads. As the saying went, if you want to be rich, build roads first. This was proposed by Han Fei. When the teleportation arrays were opened, it was incredibly convenient to travel between the Thousand-Star City, the 36 towns, and the Scattered Stars Island. Originally, the cost of passing through the teleportation array was quite high, but now there were special subsidies. Therefore, people could come and go freely in these places. Of course, development would also bring some problems, and there would be some special situations, such as bullying the weak, grudges, and so on, even though Shueishenqi had registered as much as possible at the entry and exit gates of various places. He had reorganized the law enforcement teams of various places, but such problems still emerged one after another. This was a world of cultivators, and the strong could always despise the weak. Therefore, this world was still not so safe. There were also a lot of loopholes in the system. However, this did not affect the rise of the vast majority of people in the Inyang heaven. At least, it was no exaggeration to say that the rise of fishing masters and great fishing masters was dozens of times easier than before. On this day, on the Scattered Stars Island, fishing boats were coming in and out from all directions. On the coastline of the entire Scattered Stars Island, people were fighting. Some people needed resources and some people needed to rise. They received tasks through the mission hall. The people of this city of justice came and went in an endless stream. Thud, thud, thud above the sky, there seemed to be a drum, and the big drum was like thunder. On the Scattered Stars Island, countless people looked up, but they could only hear the sound. However, the beating of the drum continued for several hundred breaths. On the west side of the Scattered Stars Island, countless people who were hunting were horrified. Someone exclaimed, "What's that? Those flying in the sky. Those are bugs. So many bugs." Someone was horrified. "And birds. My sea god. So many birds." Buzz, suddenly, a canopy bloomed in the sky. Many people felt relieved when they saw the sky screen appear. Over the years, the one who loved using the sky screen the most was Marshal Han. The sky curtain appeared and Han Fei was not far away. As expected, in the sky, almost 200,000 humans spread their wings and flew in the air, like divine soldiers descending from the sky. Beside the human race, there were countless huge birds flying, covering the sky. On the other side, densely packed beetles of all colors were buzzing in the air. On the backs of many of the beetles, there were also some tree-ants who were stretching out their branches. Some zergs that could not fly were marching on the surface of the sea. Someone was hunting on the surface of the sea. Who would have thought that so many terrifying insects would suddenly appear? These people looked at the sky with shock on their faces. In the blink of an eye, he saw a black mass of giant worms rushing over. Those worms were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Their big mouths were opening and closing, and their sharp claws were treading on the waves, which was really frightening. When those worms passed by them, they all bypassed them and glanced at the people blocking the way with their big eyes from time to time. Those people's ears were buzzing and some worms buzzed. Is this the Inyang heaven? Sure enough, they are all ugly people. The spiritual energy here seems to be a bit thin. A worm responded, "Spiritual energy is only one aspect. We haven't encountered a single enemy so far. It seems to be very safe." A worm said, I heard that there is an island flying in the sky. Where is it? I don't seem to see it. There were also Zergs who shouted to the passers, "Hello, humans! Human beings, have you eaten them? Human beings, don't look at us with that expression. We don't eat humans." In the sky screen, Han Fei and Luo Xiaobai appeared in everyone's sight, standing on the back of a big worm. Han Fei shouted, "All human compatriots of the Yin-Yang Heaven, I am Commander Han. More than 3 years ago, I led an army on an expedition. In more than 3 years, under the leadership of Luo Xiaobai, under the leadership of the 250,000-strong expeditionary army of the Yin-Yang Heaven, we slaughtered the Yin-Yang Heaven. In this battle, we killed dozens of sea demon venerables, 1 sea demon king, and hundreds of thousands of sea demons of all levels." Han Fei's face was slightly dark. "In more than 3 years, our expeditionary army has suffered a total of more than 60,000 casualties. They have created a glorious era for us. They deserve to be remembered. With their efforts, 32 people in the expeditionary army have become explorers, 13568 have become law enforcers, and 58624 have reached the strength of peak-level hidden fishers. The rest, the weakest, have at least reached the realm of intermediate hidden fishers. This is a sign of the prosperity of our human race." Hiss Scattered Stars Island, the City of Justice. At the moment when Han Fei announced the number, countless people gasped. What did explorers mean? How could they not know? Originally, there were not many explorers on the Scattered Stars Island. Suddenly, there were more than 30 people? How enviable! The most shocking thing was that there were actually more than 10,000 law enforcement officers in this expedition? Was it so easy to be a law enforcement officer now? Someone exclaimed, "More than 10,000 law enforcement officers in just 3 years. What kind of place was Shuemu Heaven? You've only been there for 3 years, and more than 10,000 enforcers have been born?" The hidden fishers who didn't go were horrified. "Is the chance of a breakthrough so high? Looks like I should go. Otherwise, I might have become a law enforcer by now." Chun Sanbai and Shueshenqi stood in the Hengduan mountain range, quietly watching this scene. Shueshenqi said lightly, "Senior Chun, the 2 worlds are connected." Chun San nodded. "That's a good thing. According to historical records, we had allied with them before. However, it had been too long, so long that the world had already forgotten. I never expected that I would be able to witness such a grand occasion today." Chao Tianji watched this scene from a distance. When he saw that Chao Qiu and the others were all fine, he was relieved. However, Chao Tianji was immediately shocked by the news of Han Fei's kingslaying. On the issue of kingslaying and the arrival of other races, although most people were surprised by the kingslaying, they didn't have a clear understanding of kingslaying. After all, Old Monster Chu also claimed to be a kingslaying, but he was also slaughtered by Han Fei. Now, Han Fei said that kingslaying was like slapping a venerable to them. However, Chao Tianji and Tang Yen were different. King Butcher's words might be true this time. After all, this kind of thing couldn't be faked. He just needed to ask anyone. Han Fei continued, "Everyone, next to me is an ally of the Shuemu Heaven. They are the insect clan from the Shuemu Heaven. When the army goes out, the common people retreat." When Han Fei introduced this, countless insects couldn't help but raise their big horns and flap their wings more vigorously. The buzzing sound became even more solemn. Countless insects thought, Han Fei is really good at using words. When the insect clan goes out, the common people retreat. How domineering! Han Fei named names. There's also the Sky Clan. They are the overlords of the sky, with unparalleled speed and aerial combat ability. After all, as the first race to come to the Yin-Yang Heaven for exchange, they knew that there were almost no Sky Clan here. So, the Sky Clan all made their bodies big. Every one of them was extremely huge. The scene of them blotting out the sky was spectacular. Han Fei continued to name names. And the demonic plant clan, they are natural manipulators. the tree men waved their vines and responded to this atmosphere. However, the tree men were more like curious babies, waving their tentacles and really didn't show any momentum. In the end, when the sky curtain fell on young man and the other Shuemu heavenly humans, the entire scattered stars island burst into exclamations. Damn, they're so King beautiful. CK. Are they human? Are they fairies? A female cultivator said in shock. Wow, so handsome. Are they men? Why are they more beautiful than women? Countless people subconsciously revealed smiles on their faces, and some even laughed foolishly. Someone licked the corner of his mouth. I admit, I'm tempted. The people on the ground were celebrating, and the people in the sky and the clans of the Shuemu heavenly race were all surprised. They were also curious about the human society on the Inyang heaven. When they flew over the sky of the scattered stars island, including Luo Xiaobai and the others, they were all wondering, Han Fei, aren't you going down? Zhang Xuanyu said, Fei Fei. If we go any further, we'll leave the scattered stars island. On the ground and in the sky, people were wondering where Han Fei was going to fly with them. In the sky curtain, Han Fei walked 1,000 miles in one step. Walking in the void, Han Fei walked to the south of the scattered stars island and stood on a slightly shallower sea. Han Fei shouted, Fellow humans of the Inyang heaven, I declare that in half a month, I will open a channel from the Inyang heaven to the Shuemu heavenly race, and the two worlds will be connected from now on. Now, allow me to waste a little time. Han Fei stood still in the void, and a white lotus suddenly appeared in his hand. Everyone thought it was some kind of treasure. Han Fei casually waved his hand and threw it into the void. The white lotus slowly grew bigger in midair and gradually bloomed, until the white lotus drifted 1,000 miles away and fell on the sea. It shattered with a bang. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The next second, the seabed was shaking slightly. In the void, there was a white mist, and mountains seemed to appear in the mist, and in the eyes of some people, their eyes were full of shock, only to see a large number of mountains emerging. On a high mountain, there was a storm raging, and 9 huge snake heads were protruding into the sky. On another mountain, there was a huge vine submerged into the clouds, and the vines swayed in the clouds. There was a cone-shaped grass all over the mountain, and with swish, hundreds of sky-inspecting swords flew around in the sky. It was none other than the sky-inspecting swords. Han Fei shouted, From now on, another place will be built outside the Scattered Stars Island as a place to live and operate between the two worlds, and this place is called the 100,000 Mountains. Chapter 1683. Whenever there was a big event, it would be noisy. The return of the expeditionary army was definitely a big event, wasn't it? In the entire Scattered Stars Island, those who were supposed to go out to take missions basically didn't go out at this time. Many people wanted to go to the 100,000 Mountains for a walk on a whim. He released the 1,000 Mountains ancient realm. However, the death energy problem on it hadn't been solved yet, so it couldn't be lived in for a while. However, this didn't affect the status of the 1,000 Mountain ancient realm. It wouldn't be long before all the major races would be most willing to stay here. As for these follow-up matters, they all fell on Luo Xiaobai. For 7 days in a row, Luo Xiaobai didn't sleep. Luo Xiaobai didn't rest, so Han Fei and the other two naturally didn't rest either. They all helped plan to deal with the new situation on the Scattered Stars Island. Finally, on the 7th day, Luo Xiaobai asked those who had been to the Shuemu Heaven to act as guides and lead the major races of the Shuemu Heaven into the Scattered Stars Island. As soon as they entered, the Scattered Stars Island immediately became a place where the major races met. Although the Inyang Heavenly Human Clan and the Shuemu Heavenly Human Clan were all humans, because of their appearance, they were still considered the 5 major races in everyone's hearts. Since then, the 5 major races had gathered together, and the entire city of Justice was noisy. And among them, the material exchange business also developed. Each of the two worlds had its own characteristic. The City of Justice had a lot of combat skills. Although there weren't that many resources, everyone had different resources, so it didn't affect the exchange between them at all. Because there were too many races, the arena naturally came into being. The merchants of the Million Gold Town expanded their business to the Scattered Stars Island. All kinds of cultivator living facilities were built at a high price. However, the land on the Scattered Stars Island was precious. Even so, the relevant departments sprang up one after another like bamboo shoots after a rain. 7 days later, in the Thug Academy, the 4 of them and old Jiang were preparing to cook. At this moment, Li Daxian was cleaning up the death energy problem in the 100,000 mountains. There was too much death energy there, which was suitable for Li Daxian to cultivate. When Li Daxian finished absorbing the death energy there, the 100,000 mountains would be officially opened to the public. At this time, there were only 6 people from the Thug Academy in the Yinyang Heaven. Old Bai, Xiao Zhan, Wenren Yu, Jiang Qin, Yang Xie, and Su Daiji all stayed in the Shuemu Heaven. To them, Shuemu Heaven was simply an explosive period of cultivation. In reality, there weren't many expeditionary army soldiers who truly wanted to return. However, under Han Fei's order, he had to come back. In Han Fei's words, they came back to serve as a bridge between the two worlds. The 200,000 people were shocked. Did I just become a bridge? Seeing that such a heavy responsibility had been entrusted to them, many people's first thought was that they were very important. He had already participated in changing the wheel of history. Therefore, those who could return had all returned. Those who didn't come back either didn't find them. Anyway, Old Bai and the others all used this excuse. At this moment, Lu Renquang was preparing the barbecue, and Luo Xiaobai was preparing spiritual fruits and drinks. Old Jiang was preparing his dumplings. Zhang Xuanyu didn't want to do anything, so he said, "Fei Fei, don't tell me you didn't collect some high-end ingredients. How about we get a supremacy to try it?" Cough cough, old Jiang rolled his eyes. Even the Venerable can only use these animals for tasting now? Han Fei pouted and said, "Isn't Quang Quang roasting it?" Lu Renquang was unhappy when he heard this and said, "Fei Fei, what kind of meat is this? It can't even be roasted. I have brushed it with semi-venerable fish oil several times." Han Fei said carelessly, "The meat of the White Armor Emperor. It may be a little old, but it should still be edible if we roast it more." Puff clang. F*ck, Luo Xiaobai spat out half of the spiritual fruit in her mouth and stared at Han Fei, speechless. Old Jiang was so angry that his beard curled up and he roared, "You wastrel! The flesh of a king is roasted by this little fatty? Come here, I'll do it myself." Zhang Xuanyu's eyes widened and he swallowed. Can we eat it?" Han Fei smiled and said, "Okay, I'll stop teasing you. That's the flesh of a semi-king level royal sea white clam. You can eat about 5 skewers. Let's eat hot pot for the main dish. I caught a beginner venerable lobster. You can have a big meal." Phew, hearing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The flesh of a king was so scared that they almost peed their pants. 1 hour later, next to the hot pot, everyone chewed the clam meat and grimaced. Zhang Xuanyu said, "If we eat this every day, I'm afraid we'll become venerables in a year." Luo Xiaobai scoffed. "That's too much. It'll take 3 years." Lu Renquang was speechless. Is there a big difference between 1 year and 3 years? However, then he glanced at Han Fei and sighed in relief. Okay. The difference was indeed big. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Luo Xiaobai and the others stopped eating. Only Han Fei and old Jiang were still stuffing themselves with food. At this moment, Luo Xiaobai said, "Han Fei, where are you going next?" Luo Xiaobai and the others could naturally guess what Han Fei was thinking. Han Fei was not the kind of person who could stay for long. Ever since he was a child, now, the Yinyang Heaven was peaceful, and the big clans had been wiped out. In the Waterwood Heaven, the Sea Demon King City had also been destroyed. Now, it had almost become a paradise for adventurers. And with Han Fei's strength, in the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven, perhaps only the Life Queen could be his opponent. Old Jiang said, Han Fei, when can we go back to the central holy city to have a look? Han Fei said, the problem of the Yin-Yang palace has not been solved yet. The eye of the heavenly path is still there. Next, I have to find a way to leave the water Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven. Zhang Xuanyu said in surprise, to the cage. Luo Xiaobai keenly grasped something. Are you going to go outside the cage? Everyone couldn't help looking at Han Fei, only to see him grin. Whether I can go there or not, I need to try again. Hiss, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Out of the cage? That's a whole new world. What they faced there might be even crueler than the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven. Han Fei said, in the next few days I will stay here. From now on, Xiaobai, the work on the Scattered Stars Island is still yours. Luo Xiaobai nodded. I'll keep an eye on it for you. Han Fei grinned noncommittally, then took out a few star beads and said, these are the star beads of the Chu sect, the Chao family and the Thug Academy. Among them, the Chu sect star beads are the best. This is also the reason why the Chu sect has been able to dominate these years. Luo Xiaobai and the others were surprised. 9 star beads? No matter how good these star beads are, we can't use them, can we? Han Fei took one out, held it up and said, this star bead is very safe inside. The ratio of time inside to outside is 10:1. That is to say, 10 years inside is 1 year outside. Hiss, old Jiang immediately grabbed the star bead and said, really? Isn't this something that only the great Tao of time can do? Seeing old Jiang looking at the star bead up and down, Han Fei said with a smile, even the great Tao of time can't do this. This kind of great Tao has already exceeded the power of ordinary kings. So, the Thug Academy can keep this star bead for ourselves. Old Jiang, Luo Xiaobai and the others nodded. In this world, who would be truly selfless? Han Fei naturally had his own selfish motives, and Luo Xiaobai and the others even more. Besides, there was only one such star bead. Only by holding it in his hands could he help the rise of the human race. He had to be strong first so that he could help more people. If he released it now, there might be a big problem. 3 days later. In the past 3 days, apart from eating, drinking, and sleeping with Luo Xiaobai and the others, Han Fei occasionally wandered around the City of Justice. Even Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Such a prosperous era was actually created by him? It would be a lie to say that he didn't have a sense of accomplishment. On this day, Luo Xiaobai was dealing with the problem of opening the passage between the two worlds, when she saw Han Fei suddenly appear. Luo Xiaobai wondered, what's wrong? Han Fei said, look at the sky. Above the sky curtain bloomed again. Yes, this was the umpteenth time that the general public had seen the sky curtain bloom. Basically, whenever the sky curtain bloomed, something big must happen. During Han Fei's reign, this had become a tradition. Therefore, when the sky curtain bloomed, people spontaneously put down what they were doing and looked up. This time, Han Fei was wearing a green robe and said leisurely, my comrades on the Scattered Stars Island, I, Han Fei, have been on the throne for 9 years. I have swept through the 10,000 Demon Valley, annihilated the army of the Black Killer Snail, and wiped out the big clans in the 1,000-Star City. I have established friendly relations with the neighboring Waterwood Heaven, and I have killed kings and lords. Today, I am very pleased to see the City of Justice, the 36 towns, and the 1,000-Star City living in peace and harmony. The people on the Scattered Stars Island seemed to realize something and couldn't help but become serious. Han Fei said, however, there is one last thing waiting for me in the Yin-Yang heaven. That is to break the pattern that no one in the Yin-Yang heaven can become a king. I don't know how many years I'll be gone. So, I will pass the position of the Supreme Commander of the Scattered Stars Island to Luo Xiaobai, who is also the commander of the Expeditionary Army. Wow, countless people were shocked. Someone was shocked. What? General Han is going to abdicate? It's only been 9 years. What's 9 years? Someone sighed. What do you know? The position of the Supreme Commander has obviously limited General Han's development. General Han's last step is to become a king. Someone sighed. Although I knew that General Han might abdicate in advance, I didn't expect it to be so early. Someone sighed. Is it really good to pass the position to his fellow disciple? Someone sneered. Do you know who Luo Xiaobai is? She is from a divine manipulator family in the Thousand Star City and has mastered the divine skills of the Luo family. She is a heavenly talent of the Thug Academy. She is in the same realm as General Han and has reached the peak of the explorer level. It is said that she is about to become a semi-venerable. She is also a real heavenly talent of the generation. Someone was surprised. Where did you learn this news? The man smiled and said, It has quietly spread in the expeditionary army. Now many people know it. The man was puzzled. Isn't she far from General Han? The listeners all looked at the man who spoke like he was a fool. General Han, is she a normal person? Wasn't General Shueishenqi also an explorer on the Scattered Stars Island? How old is Luo Xiaobai? With the growth speed of those geniuses, it's not a problem for them to become a venerable. For a moment, everyone was talking at once. Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei in surprise. Han Fei smiled in the sky and said, Don't hide from your relatives. Luo Xiaobai is much better than me in terms of business, strategy, and planning. Her strength has also reached the peak stage of the venerable realm. She is about to become a semi-venerable, and it will only be a few years before she becomes a venerable. As the saying goes, there are talents in every generation. In the future, if a heavenly talent can catch Luo Xiaobai's eyes, he may become the new Supreme Commander of the Scattered Stars Island. With that, Han Fei grabbed the 13-star token and sent it to Luo Xiaobai, smiling. I've had enough of the position of the Supreme Commander of the Scattered Stars Island. Next, I want to become a king. End of this volume. Chapter 1684. He didn't say goodbye to Zhang Xuanyu and the others, because the days in the Thug Academy were a kind of farewell. After closing the sky curtain, Han Fei just chatted with Luo Xiaobai for a while. Giving Luo Xiaobai a sun moon shell, Han Fei said, These things are for the Thug Academy. They have nothing to do with the people of the Yin-Yang Heaven. I deserve them. Don't donate them. Luo Xiaobai glanced at him and her eyelids twitched. Okay. When are you leaving? Han Fei said, Now. Luo Xiaobai said solemnly, Come back early. Han Fei grinned. I'll try my best. By the way, I have something else to tell you. Luo Xiaobai. The void shook and another Han Fei appeared. This Han Fei's skin was slightly fairer, so it was Han Fei's incarnation. The incarnation said, I'll stay. Luo Xiaobai couldn't help asking, This is Han Fei's voice came from the incarnation. I am the incarnation of my main body, and now I have the strength of a semi-venerable. My incarnation is the same as my main body's soul. You can think of it as a clone I left behind, which is equivalent to a trump card of mine. The corner of Luo Xiaobai's mouth twitched. A dummy? The incarnation immediately said, What dummy? I know what happened to you when you were a child. As I said, the incarnation and the main body are inseparable. Luo Xiaobai couldn't help but smile. Then stay. I happen to be short of people. You can be my guard in the future. Han Fei. Luo Xiaobai made a rare joke, but Han Fei still broke the void and left. In the Sun Moon Shell, Han Fei left the body of a semi-king, 10 sea demon venerables, and more than 30 ultra-quality divine weapons. As for how to deal with them, it was up to them. After leaving the Scattered Stars Island, Han Fei appeared on the back of the Cloud Whale 30,000 kilometers away. Han Fei sat cross-legged, holding the corpse of a venerable. Do you still want to eat it? Tang Yen said lightly. A venerable wants me to help you guard the Yin-Yang Heaven? Isn't it too cheap? Han Fei asked. Is it too much for a peak-level venerable to help me guard the Yinyang heaven for a few years? Tang Yen was non-committal. As long as Chao Tianji doesn't suddenly attack or forcefully pass the monarch tribulation. Han Fei couldn't help but smile. Even if I'm not here, do you dare to take the king's tribulation? To be honest, I don't even dare. Tang Yen paused for a moment. Are you sure you can leave this place? Do you think you can enter the wall of death now? Han Fei said, I can try, but I won't lie to the world. Although that cage looks incomparably tough and even monarchs can't break it, perhaps it's really about to collapse. Tang Yen continued, I know a little about the outside world. The 36 profound heavens was not a simple place. Take care of yourself. Han Fei smiled and suddenly asked, Where's Tangu? Why aren't they out yet? Tang Yen, actually, it's already out. Han Fei asked in surprise, When did that happen? Why didn't I know about this? Tang Yen said indifferently, He has experienced some things, and his strength is almost at the half-venerable realm now. But, understanding of oneself? There were some deviations. Maybe he doesn't know how to face you? So he's not here? He went to the 1,000-star city. Han Fei said indifferently. He fell into a deviation of understanding of who he is? Tang Yen, for the time being. However, he will eventually overcome this obstacle. By the way, he has found his path of swordsmanship. Han Fei froze for a moment and couldn't help but smile. That's good news. After chatting with Tang Yen for a while, Han Fei was about to leave. He went to the only exit. All of a sudden, the ring of time on Han Fei's hand? It flashed a few times for no reason. The next moment, Han Fei felt that the time around him had changed. Now, Han Fei appeared in an independent timeline. Han Fei felt his scalp go numb. He was already strong enough to face the Time Dragon Carp's Tao of Time? He didn't even have the time to react before he was brought to another timeline? And this space? It was the Coral Sea where little time was in the abyssal chasm. At this moment, Han Fei saw Xiaosei standing not far away. Beside Xiaosei, there was also a little girl who was only 4 or 5 years old, pink and chubby. The little girl's eyebrows and eyes? And there were a few strands of light blue lines. Her eyes were very watery. It seemed that she had inherited the purity of the fish's eyes. Big brother! Han Fei grinned. Oh, little time. You've grown up? However, Han Fei was shocked. Little time was so young and could already transform into a human form? Sure enough, the information reading ability of the demon purification pot didn't appear. So, Han Fei didn't know. What did Little Time look like? Why did she suddenly transform? He saw Little Time stumbling over in a childish manner. She said in a slightly awkward manner, Big brother, are you here to deliver food to me? Han Fei thought to himself, I do have food, but now the food has been upgraded. I really haven't prepared food suitable for you this time. However, Han Fei reached out and grabbed a cup of spirit awakening fluid. Little time, I'll take you to eat something good later. At this moment, the void trembled and a huge fish emerged from a blue light hole. Little time immediately shouted, Mommy! The time dragon carp shook its body and turned into a noblewoman in a red robe with 2 horns on her head. The woman gently hugged Little Time and said softly, Baby, be good. You can go out now. Later, you can go out with Big Brother and have a look. Eat delicious food and play with fun things. Really? Can I finally go out? The woman said dotingly, Of course, the premise is that you can't abuse your time power. Baby, be good. I have something to say to your big brother. Play by yourself for a while. Little Time obediently ran to Xiaosei's side and looked at Han Fei and her mother, who were shrouded in a blue halo curiously. Han Fei asked in surprise, Senior, is the time up? The woman said, At least, in this barbarian land, you are indeed unparalleled. I have been paying attention to you for a long time. Although your personality is not very good, at least you are not bad to the people around you. Little Time will sign an equality contract with you. In the future, you will take her to the king level. How about that?" Han Fei couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Senior, I haven't reached the king level yet," the Time Dragon Carp said lightly. "If everything goes well, it is only a matter of time. As long as you leave this place, you want to transcend the tribulation and become a king? It is not difficult. However, I suggest you become a king here." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Senior, what do you mean?" The Time Dragon Carp said, "Here, you are the embodiment of luck. Everything here, more or less, is closely related to you. If you transcend the tribulation in the outside world, you are just an ordinary king in the outside world. But if you transcend the tribulation here, you will bear the luck of this world and become a king. Of course, the effect will be different." Han Fei was shocked. Is there such a saying? Although Han Fei didn't intend to transcend the tribulation in the outside world. After all, he hadn't even reached the end of the road of being a half-king yet, because he had basically cultivated all kinds of cultivation techniques to the upper limit. Now his progress was already relatively slow. If he could go out this time and find Yin, that would naturally be the most important thing. However, if possible, he still needed to polish the realm of half-king to the limit. For example, the spiritual energy dismantling technique. Although he had accumulated a large amount of wish power, to what extent could this wish power support him to dismantle it? Han Fei didn't know. It was for this reason that Han Fei knew that this trip was very important. However, now that the Time Dragon Carp said so, Han Fei took it seriously. If becoming a king in his own world was better than becoming a king outside, then why should he become a king outside? Han Fei immediately cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for reminding me, Senior." The Time Dragon Carp said, "I won't let you bring my daughter to the king's domain for nothing. You should have taken the Great Path of Time, right? I can use the Great Path of Time as an exchange. Now I can help you improve your Great Path of Time by 2 levels. In addition, you can learn all the time techniques my daughter uses. As long as you can comprehend them, you can learn everything. There is no limit." When Han Fei heard this, he was shocked. How strong the Great Path of Time was. He naturally knew. It was 2 levels higher than now. Wouldn't he be able to enter other timelines? Han Fei couldn't help looking at Little Time and asked, "Senior, is Little Time growing up fast now?" The woman smiled slightly. "It will exceed your imagination. Baby has stayed here for tens of thousands of years." Han Fei's heart thumped. "Okay. No problem." Han Fei thought to himself, as long as she grows up fast it'll be easy. If she grows up fast, in the future, he can ask Little Time about the Great Path of Time. But if she grows up too slowly, maybe the role will be reversed. He couldn't be a nanny for hundreds or even tens of thousands of years, right? As for the Great Path of Time, with his green jade stone bridge ability, he didn't lack the Time Dragon Carp to help him improve it by 2 levels. The woman said, "In addition, the Great Path of Time can't be used easily. This is true for both my daughter and you. The stronger the Great Path of Time is, the more you can't use it easily. Remember my warning. If you must use it, you must be careful. No one can notice you." Han Fei couldn't help asking, "Why?" Han Fei instinctively felt that this matter was not simple. And in Han Fei's heart, a voice suddenly said, "The 3 shrines." Suddenly, the Time Dragon Carp looked at Han Fei's chest. "It turns out that this is an ancient turtle. I didn't expect that he would know such a secret." Han Fei was dumbfounded. He knew about the 3 shrines. On the Forbidden Island, the old turtle had explained it to him. Since the old turtle said there were 3 shrines, then obviously, one of them should be the so-called Temple of Time. The woman said, "This is not something you should know. The ancient turtle in your heart should know the danger, so I don't need to tell you too much." When things were related to the Temple of Time, Han Fei should consider the pros and cons. However, there was an existence like the Emperor's sparrow beside him, which was described by the old turtle as dangerous as the 3 shrines. Han Fei thought for a moment. Anyway, I'll just take it to the king level. The old turtle once said that the king level was just the beginning of the great path. There would be a lot of kings in the vast ocean. As long as he was careful, there shouldn't be a problem. The main problem was that when Little Time reached the king level, it meant that the great path of time that he mastered might be beyond his imagination. After all, Little Time could travel in the long river of time. Han Fei cupped his hands. I know. Senior, don't worry. I won't use the great path of time easily. Even if I use it, I won't do it in front of many people. The woman said, as long as you don't use a particularly powerful time technique, there will be no problem. For example, you can reverse time by consuming chaotic energy. No one will pay attention to a time technique of this level, even though it is very rare. After confirming that Han Fei understood, the woman waved her hand, and a lot of blue halos emerged around Han Fei. Some insights about the great path of time were directly poured into Han Fei's head. Chapter 1685. This was not the first time that Han Fei had signed a contract with someone. Besides, this contract was only an equality contract, which was equivalent to Han Fei taking a younger sister with him. Their relationship was just that of a brother and a sister, not a master and servant at all. Xiao Sei naturally had no objection. She had already felt Han Fei's uniqueness. However, after the contract was completed, Han Fei and Little Time's minds were immediately connected. In an instant, information appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name Time Dragon Carp Introduction: a mysterious god living in the river of time, born with the great way of time. It has a natural talent in the way of time. Time dragon carps are extremely rare. Because they are good at fighting with time, they have often been hunted by supreme beings since ancient times. Level 1 Quality Mysterious Great Way Time contains 1000 wisps of chaotic energy, food, omnivorous combat skills, time reversal, time armor, time speed shift, time travel, time displacement, time bind, time conversion, time steal. Remarks: Time dragon carps are extremely rare, so it's best not to use their abilities easily. Oh my god, Han Fei was dumbfounded. F***CK. You're only level 1. The chaotic energy contained in Little Time has already reached 1000 wisps? Is this a joke? If the chaotic energy was not a big deal, then what the hell were those combat skills? Of the series of 8 or 9 combat skills, he seemed to only know one. Even though the Great Time gave him time perception, Han Fei had only mastered the preliminary time steal and time displacement, which couldn't be compared with Little Time at all. Gulp. Han Fei couldn't help swallowing. If he learned all these time techniques, his strength would probably soar by several levels in an instant, not to mention anything else, just his ability to escape would be top-notch. Even if he encountered a king, he wouldn't be afraid at all, because the other party couldn't kill him at all. As if knowing what Han Fei was surprised about, the woman said, "Baby, why do you have so much chaotic energy? Don't be surprised. You will know soon. Don't let me use the chaotic energy easily." With that, the Time Dragon Carp comforted Little Time and said dotingly, "Baby, be good. From now on, follow me and be obedient. Don't easily enter the river of time, and don't easily cast complicated time techniques, remember?" Little Time said in a childish voice, "I'll remember. Mommy, aren't you coming with us?" The Time Dragon Carp sighed and said, "Darling, I have a lot of things to do. When you become king, you can find me." Little Time clenched her fists tightly. "Then I'll become a king tomorrow." The Time Dragon Carp stroked Little Time's head, smiled gently, and looked at Xiao Sei. "You have accompanied Little Time for a long time, and now you are free. If you want to follow me, then follow me. If you don't want to, you can leave on your own," Xiao Sei hurriedly said. Xiao Sei has watched Little Master grow up. It's been so many years, it's better to follow him. The time dragon carp nodded slightly. However, with a tap of her finger, strange lines that looked like talismans appeared on the surface of Xiao Sei's body, like binding bands. When those restraints were broken one by one, Xiao Sei's realm was rising steadily in Han Fei's eyes. From a hanging fisher to a hidden fisher, then to a law enforcer, an explorer, a junior venerable. Finally, his strength stabilized at the intermediate venerable realm. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. I didn't expect Xiao Sei to be so strong. Before, he didn't know that this guy was a hidden big shot. Of course, Han Fei knew that it wasn't the time dragon carp that helped him improve, but it lifted his restraints. Now, the intermediate venerable realm was not a big deal for Han Fei. However, Han Fei suddenly thought of something. Since this Xiao Sei can serve little time, he should also be cultivating the great path of time, right? If the great path of time was counted, an intermediate venerable could at least fight against a peak-level advanced venerable, or even escape from a peak-level venerable. In this way, this Xiao Sei was not bad. However, Han Fei didn't take it seriously. With or without this Xiao Sei, it didn't matter. Since Xiao Sei wanted to follow him, then so be it. Anyway, it was equivalent to having one more guard. It just so happened that when he went to the outside world, he couldn't fully show his strength. Otherwise, if a powerhouse comparable to a king-level powerhouse went to the glass sky, would he be suspected by others? It was hard to say. At that time, he could pretend to be a child of a big clan, which would be perfect. Han Fei couldn't help but secretly rejoice. Forget about the Temple of Time, if he could learn Little Time's great path of time, he would make a lot of money. In the end, the time dragon carp said, "Okay, you can go now." Han Fei couldn't help saying, "Senior, well, until now I don't know what to call you. I can't always call you Little Time, can I?" The time dragon carp said lightly, "My name is Nian, but you'd better just call me by my name. Or you can call me Han Nian. It doesn't matter." Okay then. After the time dragon carp left, Han Fei only felt that the surrounding space was dissipating. When he reappeared in the normal timeline, he was still in the place where he had disappeared before, still close to the scattered stars island. However, as soon as he arrived in the outside world, he heard a crack and saw that Little Time had made a breakthrough. Han Fei was stunned. How did he make a breakthrough? Crack, crack, wow. Han Fei was speechless. Little Time made a breakthrough. It only took him a few seconds to make a breakthrough. In just a moment, he reached the realm of a fishing master. While Han Fei was surprised, he heard Xiao Sei say, "There is too much power in Little Master's body. The place where she was before is the intersection of space and time, so her body is neither real nor virtual, so she can carry more power in this state. Now, once she appears in the outside world, she needs to make a breakthrough." Kacha. Kacha and Nian Er's breakthrough didn't stop at all. In just less than half an hour, Nian Er had already reached the realm of a great fishing master. Not only did she reach the realm of a fishing master, but she also grew about 5 centimeters taller. At this moment, Nian Er turned her head to look at Han Fei and said eagerly, "Brother, I'm hungry." Han Fei suddenly realized that she was making a breakthrough. A breakthrough required a lot of spiritual energy. Of course, she was hungry. Han Fei casually threw a large amount of spiritual spring water to wrap Nian Er up. The spiritual spring was being consumed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The sound of breaking the realm didn't stop at all. Only then did Han Fei understand what the time dragon carp said just now. Why does Little Time contain so much chaotic energy? Damn it, Nian Er had clearly reached the realm of venerable in a certain level, but her actual realm was still at level 1 now that she left the intersection of time and space. Wouldn't she be making breakthroughs crazily? After another half an hour, Nian Er's strength crazily rose to the realm of a dangling fisher. Another half an hour later, Nian Er's strength had already risen to the realm of a hanging fisher. 2 hours later, Nian Er's strength had reached the realm of a hidden fisher. Han Fei almost collapsed. This thing's breakthrough is even more fierce than the Emperor Sparrow's. How could they still have fun like this? A day later, when Nian Er's strength reached the peak of a law enforcer, she finally stopped. Because at this time, she needed to transcend the heavenly tribulation. Nian Er should have had a hunch, so she stopped here. However, she seemed to be still comprehending the realm. After all, she had crossed a lot of realms. One day ago, she only had the strength to drink milk, but one day later, she had superhuman strength. It would be strange if she didn't appreciate it. However, after many breakthroughs, it seemed that Nian Er was not as childish as before. Originally, when Nian Er was only 1 meter tall, she was still a little girl with a childish voice. Now she was more than 3 meters tall and had turned into a girl. And this was because she didn't transcend the tribulation and didn't continue to make breakthroughs. Xiao Sei said, "In a short period of time, Little Master's strength should be at this level. Next, Little Master has a lot to learn. The knowledge that should be learned has to be learned slowly. Although I have taught a lot, Little Master has never been in contact with others. There are many things that you don't understand. You need to learn them slowly." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay. Got it." Sure enough, although it took a day, it was only 1 day. It only took Nian Er an hour to slowly adapt to her current strength. And her voice also changed slightly, becoming a little crispy. After Nian Er adapted to her body, the first thing she did was look at Han Fei again. "Brother, I'm hungry." Han Fei grinned. "Don't worry, brother, I'll find some snacks for you." Han Fei took out a fishing rod and threw it casually. Swish, swish, swish sounds could be heard continuously. Big fish, crabs, lobsters, starfish, sea urchins, prawns, mussels and snails were caught by Han Fei, and he caught hundreds of them in a row. Han Fei said, "Nian Er, be a good girl. I need to cross a territory. You need to go to another space for a few days. When I cross it, let Nian Er come out." Nian Er asked, "It won't take long, will it?" Nian Er wants to stay outside. At this time, Xiao Sei said, "Little Master, the place that Master Han Fei crosses is very dangerous, and you are not strong enough. So, you really need to wait a few days." Nian Er immediately said, "Okay. Then I'll go." Han Fei naturally sent Nian Er and Xiao Sei into the sea-quelling painting. Han Fei made a lot of potato chips to kill time for Nian. When everything was packed up, Han Fei quietly appeared on the Scattered Stars Island. He didn't find a way out in the Shuemu heaven. After returning to the Yin-Yang heaven, the first thing Han Fei did was find a way to enter the cage. However, the myriad manifestation instrument didn't turn, which made Han Fei's heart sink. Almost with the mentality of giving it a try, Han Fei tried to find a way to the outside world in the Yin-Yang heaven. To his surprise, Han Fei actually found it. And this way was the bottomless cave in the Transverse Mountain. Chapter 1686. The bottomless pit of the Transverse Mountain had been studied by countless people for generations. Some people had even experimented with it, but none of them came back. Therefore, gradually, this bottomless pit became extremely mysterious. As time went by, no one dared to go in anymore. At this moment, Han Fei didn't inform Xuexianqi. After all, he had already said that he would leave, so there was no need to say anything. With Han Fei's current strength, as long as he didn't deliberately reveal himself, no one could find him. After confirming again and again that the navigator was pointing to this bottomless pit, Han Fei took out the 9-palace ruler of fortune and found that it only fell on the ominous hexagram. Han Fei let out a long sigh of relief. "Let's go." Han Fei jumped up and let his body fall freely. It continued to descend for 2 hours without stopping. After only a few minutes, Han Fei was already surrounded by darkness. At this time, he could go out if he wanted to. After another 100 seconds, Han Fei sensed a force that was rotating outward. A few wisps of spirit-awakening fluid would float by here, and Han Fei naturally didn't have the time to catch them. Han Fei was thinking about a question. Did the place where spirit-awakening fluid came from mean that a king died here? At first, Han Fei suspected that this bottomless pit was connected to the Sky City, but later it was proved not to be the case. Spirit-awakening fluid was transformed by the Taoist aura of a king, and it either came from a living king or a dead king. Why was there no king in the Yin-Yang heaven, but no shortage of spirit-awakening fluid? It seemed that in the Yin-Yang heaven, there were a lot of dead kings. When the rotating force appeared, if Han Fei wanted to go back, it was actually not too late. Although there was only boundless darkness around, Han Fei had the navigator. However, Han Fei had made up his mind. How could he give up halfway? It was just an ominous hexagram, which was no different from an auspicious hexagram for him. Another 2 hours later, the rotating force became stronger and stronger, but after thinking about it carefully, Han Fei found that the pressure he felt was even stronger than the rotating force of this void. At this time, the oncoming pressure was getting stronger and stronger, and those below the venerable realm couldn't resist this pressure at all. Han Fei had been feeling everything around him. 1 hour seemed to be a time node. After this point in time, the external forces would undergo slight changes. At this moment, Han Fei sensed that the force was no longer a rotating force, but an inward suction force. Furthermore, it wasn't just spiritual qi that was being absorbed in this space, but also energy. There seemed to be some deathly aura, mixed demonic aura, and some remnant power of the great Tao, though there were some that even Han Fei couldn't tell. This feeling reminded him of the heaven and earth natural array core in the Forest of Horror. This kind of mixed and chaotic energy was something he had only seen in that place. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Old Yuan, do you have a sense of déjà vu?" The old tortoise said, "It's a bit similar. It might have something to do with the super formation in the cage." As the suction force grew stronger and stronger, it gradually arrived at the initial stage Exalt Realm, the mid-stage Exalt Realm, and finally the high-stage Exalt Realm. In the end, it was as if he had passed through the void. Under such a terrifying suction force, Han Fei did not resist, but allowed it to pull him. Bang! About half a day later, the surrounding suction force suddenly disappeared without a trace, and Han Fei seemed to have entered a vacuum. However, Han Fei found that something was obviously wrong. The energy in his body was flowing out. In Han Fei's eyes, a weird huge millstone appeared. It seemed that day and night were alternating, and black and white were revolving. What was it if not the yin-yang diagram? However, it was not the natural yin-yang diagram. Han Fei could vaguely tell that there were two aspects of yin and yang, which were rotating like two swimming fish. The mixed energy in the outside world was drawn into this millstone and immediately crushed by it. The impurities were discharged from the middle, but the essence was nowhere to be found. Hiss! Han Fei couldn't help but take a breath. 3 array cores? The yin-yang diagram in the cage has 3 array cores. This was the eye of the outer formation, a formation eye that had escaped the spell formation and was suppressing the entire grand spell formation. This array core suppresses the 2 realms. Oh no, it absorbs power from the yin-yang heaven, the waterwood heaven, and the outer domain and gathers it here to temper the essence energy. Was this big formation really made by my mother? Han Fei thought, if this thing was really made by my mother, why didn't she tell me in advance? Even old Han didn't tell me anything. The old turtle said, not necessarily. If your mother's strength has reached the longevity realm, it's understandable that she can make such a big and complicated formation. But if she's only in the sea-opening realm or the heaven-opening realm, how can she make such a big formation? It's very difficult. I don't think I can make it. Han Fei curled his lips and said, whether I can make it or not. Although this array core has been found, I certainly can't destroy it. And I'm sure I can't destroy it now. This place is like a vacuum, and what I feel is not the suction force. The mixed energy in the outside world is not being sucked in, but seems to have fallen into some kind of space depression and flowed over spontaneously. This is a bit like the gravitational space of a star. Han Fei pondered. An array combined with the law of space. This is definitely not something I can destroy now. The old turtle said, this is the yin-yang heavens array, but it may not have been created by your mother. However, since she took out the heaven and earth array, this array must have a lot to do with her. If you want to go out, you have to find a way. The energy here is swallowing extremely fast. If it weren't for your current strength, your body might have been overdrawn. Han Fei naturally understood. Han Fei flipped his palm and the nautical panorama appeared. With a thought, the nautical panorama pointed directly at the yin-yang millstone. Han Fei's face turned green. This was a millstone that could crush countless kinds of mixed energy. Would he be crushed if he went in? This time, although he had the nautical panorama to guide the way, Han Fei still had a lingering fear. Han Fei's body trembled, and he used the Gemini divine technique. Han Fei rushed in with only the body of white mist, but an unexpected scene happened. As soon as the body of white mist got in, it was directly crushed into smoke. The body of black mist wanted to merge with the Gemini divine technique. But this combination not only failed to pull the body of white mist back, but also dragged the body of black mist in. Damn the space law! Han Fei was directly crushed in this space. At this time, Han Fei's consciousness was clear. He wasn't sure whether it was his own idea or his body's spontaneous choice. The supreme yin-yang wheel was activated naturally. Immediately afterward, Han Fei entered another void. After a long time, Han Fei felt a little dizzy. Amidst the haziness, he saw 2 dots of light appear in the void. This situation was like looking for a way in the endless void, but there were 2 exits. One of the paths seemed to have a strong suction force, trying to pull him over. However, Han Fei felt a sense of crisis and subconsciously calculated with his fingers. Han Fei immediately knew that it was not good. He wondered if a day had passed with the 9-palace ruler of destiny. Without thinking, Han Fei took out the 9-palace ruler of destiny and began to test his luck. As a result, the result was a desperate situation, which scared Han Fei so much that he hurriedly adjusted his strength and drilled to another exit. However, Han Fei didn't know how dangerous this exit was. Fortunately, there should be one more chance to use the nautical panorama. On the way, Han Fei thought of something. Point to a safer exit. The nautical panorama didn't let Han Fei down. The second path he chose was indeed safer. However, when Han Fei drilled into the second path, the next moment, Han Fei began to bleed from his eyes, nose, mouth, and the power in his body was unstable. At that moment, the terrifying suction force seemed to suck Han Fei from one time and space to another. Under such a terrifying force, Han Fei felt that there seemed to be some kind of force acting on him. Immediately afterward, Han Fei felt extreme pain all over his body. The power in his body seemed to be bound by a mysterious force. Because of this restriction, Han Fei's realm directly fell from the half-king realm to the beginner venerable realm, and he had just entered it. F***ck. Before Han Fei asked what was going on, the old turtle said, "I don't know whether you are lucky or unlucky. At the moment you left here, a huge force suddenly poured into your body. This force is so much that you may not be able to bear it now. I had no choice but to suppress this force. I temporarily sealed it here with my soul. As a result, your realm temporarily fell." Han Fei was shocked. Is it the backlash of the 9-palace ruler of Providence? He couldn't help asking, "What do you mean? So is this power good or bad?" The old turtle said leisurely, "In the long run, it's a good thing. This power can slowly improve your body." Han Fei's face changed slightly. "How long is this long run?" The old turtle was silent for a moment and said, "Not very long, about 10 years. Is it long? Han Fei's face changed, but he managed to hold it back in the end. Fortunately, in Forge the Universe, it will be over in a few months. The old turtle said. In addition, there is another piece of news that may not be very good. Han Fei's face changed slightly. Just say it. What could be worse than the current situation? The old turtle said, Do you want to feel your body? Only then did Han Fei notice that his body seemed to be pressed by a huge mountain, as if a force thousands of times stronger was pressing on his body. Moreover, there was a force behind him that was trying to pull him back. Han Fei immediately sprinted to the periphery, but his strength was no longer that of a half-king realm. Therefore, the speed of his sprint was only equivalent to the speed of a hanging fisher or a junior hidden fisher in the sea. Immediately, Han Fei used the close-distance technique, only to find that the spatial power here was also attracted, and the close-distance technique didn't work. Therefore, the speed of the close-distance technique was not much faster than normal swimming. How could Han Fei, who was used to traveling thousands or even tens of thousands of kilometers in the void, stand it? Han Fei's face changed greatly. Where are we? The old turtle said, If there is no accident, we are just outside the cage. Your guess is right. The millstone is indeed absorbing power from the three realms. But more than that, it is absorbing power from the outside world. Therefore, the terrifying suction force is caused by it absorbing power from the outside world. Han Fei said, Then, how long do I have to swim like this? Old Yuan said, I don't know. The millstone can absorb perception power, so I can't extend my perception out. But as far as I'm concerned, since the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven are so large, the suction range of this millstone in the outside world must be tens of millions of kilometers, right? Han Fei's face turned green. With his speed, swimming tens of millions of kilometers? How long would he have to swim? He had to swim with all his strength. Otherwise, he couldn't only move forward, but also might be sucked back. Even if he used the power of Tao, he would only have the speed of a quasi-hidden fisher, or at most the speed of an advanced hidden fisher. Han Fei's current situation was like being in a vortex. It seemed that this vortex had a great impact on the space, and even if Han Fei wanted to enter Forge the Universe, he couldn't. However, as long as it was a vortex, the farther away he was from its center, the smaller the suction force should be. Therefore, as long as he persisted, the further he went, the faster his speed should be. But at this moment, Old Yuan said, Oh, I have a great technique here. You should be able to learn it. Han Fei immediately said grumpily, Why don't you tell me all at once? Why are you still hiding such a great technique? The old turtle said leisurely, Don't panic. You will learn this great technique sooner or later. During this period of time, you can use it to practice. This great technique is called Universal Great Shift. Chapter 1687. Universe Great Shift? Since he couldn't enter Forge the Universe, he couldn't recover his strength. Since the old turtle proposed a great technique, he might as well learn it. The so-called Universe Great Shift was supposed to be a great technique for the Pioneer Sea State to cross the void. Everyone knew that cultivators could step into the void when they were explorers. However, when it came to the use of void power, most people could only seize the moment the crack opened and rush through it. Or, they could use the spatial crack as a specific attack method. However, the real void technique also involved a certain spatial technique. In this world, there were some abilities that could be learned without studying the great Tao of space. For example, the Universe Great Shift, also known as the Void Great Shift, was the simplest space teleportation technique. It could travel between heaven and earth without mastering the great Tao of space, which was indeed a heaven-defying technique. The old turtle said, In the Age of Gods, this technique could also be used by the Venerable Realm. It's just that it consumes a lot of power, so the Pioneer Sea State used it more. After learning about the Universe Great Shift, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Old Yuan, How far can you teleport this time? Is it farther than my teleportation array? The old turtle thought for a moment. If it's your ultra-long distance and complicated teleportation array, it can't. Han Fei asked, what about ordinary teleportation arrays? The old turtle said, far more than that. Generally speaking, the weakest king can teleport 1,000,000 kilometers at a time. Depending on the strength of the king, the distance of teleportation is also different. It's said that a pioneer sea-state powerhouse can teleport 5,000,000 kilometers at a time with this great technique. And it's within one breath. If it's a king, you may not believe it, but he can even teleport to the stars. Han Fei's eyelids twitched slightly. Wait a minute. Are you going to space? Space? Han Fei explained. Didn't you say that I could go to the stars? Have you been there? The old turtle said, yes, I have been there. However, the big stars are barren and there is nothing good on them. Besides, once you go deep, you may get lost. Most importantly, forget it. Han Fei asked, tell me. The old turtle said, there are some things that you can understand when you are strong enough. All you need to know is that this heaven and earth great shift is the technique that sea expansion and heaven creation experts are most proficient in. Up until now, I haven't found a void shifting technique that's better than the heaven and earth great shift. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, what about the immortal level? The old turtle pondered and said, Venerable Sovereign has more tricks up his sleeves, so he must have a more powerful technique. I know that Dizun seems to prefer the method of descending, but I've never seen Dizun travel. Han Fei thought to himself, it seems that the old turtle is not particularly powerful in the Emperor realm. Otherwise, he should know something about the immortal level. But now it was vague and ambiguous. It didn't seem like he knew. 3 days later, Han Fei tried to perform the so-called universal grand shift. In order to test how far he could teleport, Han Fei also performed the Gemini Divine technique. Han Fei felt that this was an advanced flash. However, unlike Flash could only cover a distance of a few hundred meters. But Great Void Teleportation, Han Fei was amused. Old Yuan, I only teleported 100 kilometers? The old turtle said leisurely. This is mainly because of the influence of this suction force. Otherwise, you could have teleported at least 1,000 kilometers. Han Fei was speechless. Is 1,000 kilometers very far? I can cross the world's end close in one step. The old turtle sneered. The world's end close belongs to the great path of space. In reality, there are countless ways to crack it. But the heaven and earth great shift is purely related to space and doesn't need to exert any power of the great path of space. Unless someone can confine space or make space collapse or catch up with you in the void, there is almost no way to break it. This is the difference. Han Fei smiled and said, You have said 2 ways to crack it yourself. There must be a lot of experts who can confine space and cause space collapse, right? The old turtle said, You are not a vegetarian. Furthermore, the heaven and earth great shift technique was meant to be used for traveling. In the future, you will dabble in many great techniques. Why bother with this great technique? Han Fei thought about it. That's true. Now that he could teleport 100 kilometers at a time, it was a good start. If he could teleport 1,000 kilometers at a time, he wouldn't be far away from this sea area. In this way, Han Fei practiced for 7 or 8 days in a row. At the beginning, he could only teleport 100 kilometers at a time, but now he could teleport 800 kilometers at a time. It could be said that he had made rapid progress. However, this heaven and earth great shift consumed a lot of spiritual energy. One time could consume more than half of the spiritual energy in Han Fei's body. Therefore, the number of times he could teleport a day was limited. Such days lasted for about half a month. One day after half a month, Han Fei suddenly said, Old Yuan, my power has weakened. The reason why Han Fei was sure that his power had weakened was that his speed had already reached the level of a law enforcer. Of course, Han Fei's law enforcer realm was almost the same as other explorers. This was indeed good news. In the first half-month, Han Fei swam out and would be exhausted, but now it shouldn't be the case. The old turtle responded, "You can release your perception." Han Fei released his perception, and after exploring more than 400 kilometers, he finally couldn't hold it anymore. It seemed that he still had to walk for a few more days before he could completely leave this sea area. Another half an hour later, Han Fei suddenly had an idea. He stretched out his hand and grabbed at the void, grabbing a void blade. With a slash, a green light was cut out. Han Fei turned sideways and watched a flash of green light pass by him. In his eyes, information emerged. Name Vortex Sea Emperor. Introduction: an exotic fish in the Vortex Sea that likes to swim hard. Because its body is like a blade, it can avoid water blockage when swimming, so it is extremely fast. The Vortex Sea Emperor likes to take advantage of geographical advantages to hunt. Its blade is as fast as light and shadow, has the effect of breaking armor, and is highly toxic. Level 85 quality, exotic path, extreme speed, contains chaotic gas greater than 16 points, edible effect, its tentacles are very nutritious. Eating it can replenish energy and strengthen bloodlines. Collectible Sea Emperor Blade, Royal Scale Armor, absorbable. Han Fei's pupils constricted slightly. A random fish he encountered was already an intermediate venerable? Did this mean that he had already come to the outside world? However, was the outside world really so terrifying? The first creature he met was already so strong? And this guy actually contained 16 wisps of chaotic gas? Han Fei wondered, can I absorb this chaotic gas? Han Fei was very tempted by this. In the display of the demon purification pot, the word absorbable was displayed. This meant that he could absorb the chaotic gas of this fish. In the blink of an eye, 3 terrifying blades came at him in a row. Han Fei pushed with one hand and directly annihilated the power of these attacks. This Vortex Sea Emperor had never seen such a method before. Seeing that Han Fei's strength was only at the beginner venerable level, it thought a feast was coming. However, it did not expect that the strength of this big meal was so strong that it could actually break its extreme speed. At that moment, the Vortex Sea Emperor still wanted to roll over and continue to strangle Han Fei. However, Han Fei casually pulled out a knife from the seawater and cut it into 2 pieces with one slash. Immediately afterward, the Vortex Sea Emperor felt that its soul was suppressed, invaded and controlled by someone. And the chaotic gas in its body was being absorbed uncontrollably. At this moment, the Vortex Sea Emperor was stunned. It had never encountered such a terrifying enemy since it started cultivating. Who the hell is this? Unfortunately, Han Fei didn't give it a chance to ask. When Han Fei finished absorbing the chaotic gas, he directly threw away the corpse of the Vortex Sea Emperor, letting it be drawn into the endless abyss by the suction force and become the energy of the yin-yang millstone. Han Fei also discovered for the first time that the demon purification pot's absorption ability had returned. He was overjoyed. This was just like when he needed spiritual energy. Fortunately, the demon purification pot could absorb it crazily. And the old turtle's heart was trembling. This gourd is simply terrifying. Originally, this gourd could cut off other people's Tao and destroy their souls. But now it could also absorb other people's chaotic gas? What kind of divine gourd is this? Rumble, when the thunder rumbled in the sky, Han Fei suddenly realized something, only to hear him say in surprise, "Old Yuan, after this venerable realm big demon died, there was no crack in the heavenly way. What's going on?" The old turtle said, "It's simple. The space over there is too small. It's not easy for a venerable to be born, let alone a king. So when a venerable dies, a crack in the heavenly way will appear. But where are we now? This is the outside world. In the age of gods, even if a king dies, it's just an ordinary change in the heavenly way. It's not strange. This only means that there are many strong masters outside. Han Fei. Half a day later, Han Fei found that he seemed to have swum out of the terrifying abyss of suction. This outer sea was getting clearer and clearer. Han Fei felt a large amount of spiritual energy, and some chaotic forces pouring in. One day later, Han Fei's speed returned to the explorer realm. It wasn't until this moment that Han Fei met the second creature he saw, a big fish with a crescent-shaped head and a mouth full of sharp teeth. This big fish was a demi-venerable named Dark Moon Wolf Fish. Its information was as follows. Named Dark Moon Wolf Fish. Introduction. This is a kind of wolf fish with high explosive power. It has the bloodline of an ancient ferocious beast. It likes to swim to the moon and swallow the essence of the moon. It has strong spiritual power and is good at soul-piercing and confusing the environment. At the same time, the Dark Moon Wolf Fish's mental energy was powerful, and its teeth were nearly indestructible. They could even bite through high-grade divine armaments. These teeth can be used to refine divine weapons. The Dark Moon Pearl between its eyebrows can enhance the power of the soul. Level greater than 79, Demi-Venerable. Quality, exotic path, extreme speed, contains spiritual energy greater than 169,808 points. Effect, it can enhance the power of the soul. Collectible Dark Moon Pearl absorbable. Remarks, the Dark Moon Pearl can enhance the power of the soul. Han Fei used the Universal Grand Shift, and appeared in front of the Dark Moon Wolf Fish. The latter was startled by Han Fei's sudden appearance. After all, it was also a powerful creature in the demi-venerable realm and knew that Han Fei was not simple. Therefore, when Han Fei suddenly appeared, the Dark Moon Wolf Fish knew that something was wrong and immediately tried to escape. However, how could Han Fei give it a chance to escape? A moment later, above the turbulent sea, Han Fei put a crescent-shaped crystal into his mouth. Chapter 1688. After swallowing this Dark Moon Pearl, Han Fei compared it with his previous soul power and found that it had increased by about 50 points. Wow! Han Fei's eyes widened. A semi-venerable could increase his soul power by 50 points? This was simply unimaginable. With his current realm, if this Dark Moon Pearl could provide him with more than 10 points of soul power, Han Fei would feel very good. But this thing provided 50 points at once. This meant that as long as he killed 200 of them, he could increase his soul power by 10,000 points. Han Fei immediately grinned. Although his realm had temporarily fallen, it was also a pleasant surprise. In this world, there were too many powerful creatures, and it was nothing more than the relationship between the hunter and the prey. At this moment, Han Fei just played the role of the hunter. 2 days later, Han Fei hunted about 50 Dark Moon Wolf Fish. This thing was relatively rare. There weren't as many of them as one would imagine. Besides, Han Fei found that not every Dark Moon Wolf Fish could increase his soul power by 50 points. The lowest was just over 30 points. In 2 days, Han Fei's soul power increased by about 2,000 points in total. This effect couldn't be said to be slow. After all, if Han Fei were to visualize and forge the universe, he might not even have such a number in a year. Han Fei's soul power had now reached more than 190,000 points. As long as he hunted here for half a month, he estimated that he would be able to reach the 200,000 mark. Han Fei could afford to spend this time. Half an hour later, while Han Fei was hunting, suddenly, the power of his soul collided with his soul. Han Fei frowned. Someone's here. The collision of souls exposed him, but it also locked on to the target. As the saying goes, those who are skilled are bold. Han Fei didn't believe that he could meet a random king after he came out. Besides, the soul power of that person just now didn't seem very strong. And Han Fei needed to find someone to learn about the outside world. Therefore, instead of retreating, Han Fei went straight up to them. After only a few seconds, Han Fei bumped into 3 women. Among the 3 women, One of them was holding a dark moonwolf fish in her hand, while the other two were glaring at Han Fei with unfriendly expressions. In terms of appearance, these people were much worse than the people from Shui Mutian. They were no different from normal humans and could be considered ordinary. One of the women said, "The elementary exalt realm? Who are you?" Han Fei glanced at the strength of these three people. The strongest one was at the intermediate venerable realm, while the other two were at the semi-venerable realm. Even though Han Fei was only a beginner venerable now, he could still wipe out these three people in minutes. To put it bluntly, although Han Fei's current realm had temporarily fallen, he was still able to refine it. However, even a quasi-monarch realm expert might not necessarily be able to capture Han Fei. However, Han Fei was puzzled. Were the people in the outside world generally so strong? 2 early-stage exalted realm experts and a mid-stage exalted realm expert just like that? At the side, a younger woman said, "Hey! I'm asking you a question. Are you mute?" Han Fei thought of something and sneered. "Little girl, don't be so mean. Be polite to an old man." The three of them were taken aback. "Is this person very old? He looks very young." Another girl said, "How old are you? Why do you call yourself an old man?" Han Fei said leisurely, "Me? I'm already more than 4,000 years old." The two girls said in surprise, "Then won't you die?" Cough, cough. Han Fei was embarrassed, and the middle-level venerable shouted, "Shut up! What are you doing?" The middle-level venerable leaned forward. "Where are you from? Which route did you take? Where is the ship?" Han Fei was taken aback. "It seems that if I want to come here, I have to have a ship. Besides, what the hell is the route?" Han Fei said leisurely, "I travel between heaven and earth. Why do I need a ship? Wherever there is delicious food, I will be there." However, as soon as Han Fei said that, he saw the three girls' faces change. One of the two semi-venerable girls shouted, "Liar!" The other exclaimed, "Sister Fan, be careful. He must be from another pirate group." And the middle-level venerable directly attacked Han Fei. The power that suddenly burst out was extremely fast and powerful, far exceeding that of an ordinary middle-level venerable. Han Fei was surprised. "A pirate group? Are there pirates here? Let's take these people down first." When Han Fei took action, he was surprised to find that the strength of the people outside was higher than that of the Yin-Yang heavens and the Waterwood heavens. Logically speaking, their realms were the same, but the polishing was different. It could only be said that the people here had better aptitude and potential than those in the cage. Han Fei waved his hand, and the Tao of gravity descended. The middle-level venerable moved up and down, fluctuating erratically. She wanted to break through the Tao with force, however. The next moment, the woman was dumbfounded. "This person's Tao is so tough. A mere initial stage Exalt Realm expert is able to completely crush me and make me unable to move. Pooh!" In the Tao of gravity, the woman suddenly turned into a shadow, shook the void, left Han Fei's range, and appeared next to the two semi-venerable girls. Han Fei smiled faintly and said, "Little girl, I told you to respect the old. Come, tell this old man." Swish! Han Fei was about to speak, when he saw that the woman had crushed something in her hand. In the next second, the three of them were swept up by the void and disappeared. Han Fei moved quickly and came to the void with a world's end near. However, they still ran away. Han Fei. The old turtle couldn't help but secretly smile. After all, it's not your barbarian land. There are more tricks outside. What they used is just a small trick, a treasure that can change space in an instant. A teleportation can only cover a distance of 10,000 kilometers at most. If you look carefully, you should be able to find it. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. "Look?" Han Fei shook his head. "From the questions they just asked me, I can tell. There are conditions to appear in this place. First of all, there must be a ship. Secondly, there must be a route. Otherwise, if my identity is unknown, I will only be suspected and not accepted. They probably won't tell me so much about the outside world. Otherwise, they will only be more suspicious of my origin. What Han Fei didn't say was that just now, the little girl said she was from another pirate group. This meant that they were also pirates. And pirates had never been kind characters. Therefore, Han Fei needed to recover some strength. With a thought, Han Fei summoned Gui Sanqing to the outside world. Han Fei said, "Old Yuan, you can cultivate outside for a few months. Let me recover some strength first. If the ordinary people in the outside world are so strong, then my strength as a junior venerable is not enough. I have to at least improve a few levels." The old turtle nodded. Okay. To the old tortoise, a few months was nothing more than a drizzle. He was worried that he didn't have time to temper Gui Sanqing's body. Now he had some time. The mountain and river phantom appeared, and Han Fei first appeared in the sea-quelling painting. In the painting, where Earth 9 was, Nian was playing hide-and-seek with a few rabbits, giggling. When Han Fei appeared here, Nian immediately shouted, "Brother, you're here? Let's play a game." Han Fei smiled and said, "No, Nian, you may have to stay here for a year. The outside world is a bit dangerous. When I deal with the things outside, I will immediately let Nian go out." Nian hummed, but there was no trace of disappointment in her eyes. Because the two cats were arching out of the tree hole, staring at Nian with their round eyes. Although she was talking to Han Fei, Nian heart had already flown away. Han Fei was speechless. So, his worries were superfluous? He thought that Nian would be longing to go out here. However, she was having a great time. Maybe because she hadn't contacted the outside world for tens of thousands of years, she was very happy to suddenly have such a large and fresh world to live in. Next to him, Xiaosei said, "Do you need me to go out and help?" Han Fei shook his head. "No, not for the time being. During this period of time, you can play with Nian. This world is not small. It's also good to walk around and enjoy the scenery of the land." After talking to Xiaosei, Han Fei went to Forge the Universe. In Forge the Universe, it would take 10 years for Han Fei's strength to recover. This made Han Fei a little speechless. What he hated most was hard cultivation in seclusion. It would be great if he could spend 10 years in seclusion like he did before. The old turtle said, "By the way, you can improve your spiritual energy disassembly rate by the way. After all, the improvement of the spiritual energy disassembly rate of the Venerable Realm can change your tolerance to the Great Way, which may allow you to recover a year or two in advance." Hearing this, Han Fei immediately said, "Then why didn't you say so earlier?" After being reminded by the old turtle, Han Fei directly activated the disassembly rate of spiritual energy with the power of hope. 3 months later, Han Fei's spiritual energy disassembly rate had reached 92%, only a little bit away from 93%. However, the power of hope had been used up. So, Han Fei could only spend his time to disassemble it himself. There was no day or night in seclusion. 5 years later, Han Fei had recovered to the peak of the advanced Venerable Realm and was about to break through. Suddenly, Old Yuan shouted, Han Fei, I'm being targeted." Chapter 1689. When Old Yuan asked him for help, Han Fei was a little stunned. "Wait, you're a dignified Emperor Realm expert. Why are you being targeted by others?" Han Fei woke up from his seclusion and frowned. "What happened?" Old Turtle said, "I was found when I was making a breakthrough. Those people have found me and will be here in 10 minutes at most." Swish. Han Fei immediately appeared outside Forge the Universe. When he looked at Gui Sanqing, he was surprised. "You've become an advanced venerable so quickly?" Old Turtle said, "Although this sea area is dangerous, there are indeed a lot of good things on the periphery. In addition to the dark moonwolf fish, there are also some extremely rare Dao-seeking fish. I met those humans when I was catching the Dao-seeking fish. I didn't expect that they could find me." Han Fei couldn't help but roll his eyes. It sounded like Old Yuan had robbed them. Otherwise, why would they track him? Besides, they appeared when he was making a breakthrough. Han Fei was helpless. Although his strength hadn't returned to its peak, it was almost there. A peak-level advanced venerable, with his strength and many tricks. As long as the other party wasn't half a king, it shouldn't be a problem. After a moment, Han Fei saw a black shadow appear. However, the black shadow was a bit too big. It was clearly a big ship nearly 100 meters long. And it was a fast kind of sailing ship. On the big sail of the ship, there was a giant shark with a mouth full of sharp teeth and red eyes. The bow of the ship was also piled up like a shark's head. The big ship broke the void with the wind and sailed in the surging sea as if it were walking on flat ground. Suddenly, the ship disappeared. Immediately afterward, Han Fei felt the void shake. The next moment, a big ship appeared 100 kilometers away from Han Fei. When he looked closer, he saw that there was an array around the hull of the ship. The shape of the array was like a sharp knife. This thing could break the void and escape in the void. It was really interesting. Old Turtle was making a breakthrough and a huge amount of spiritual energy was absorbed into his body. However, Old Turtle left a wisp of his soul in Han Fei's heart, so they could still talk at this moment. He heard the Old Turtle say, "Woo! There should be no strong masters on this ship. The strongest one was only a high-rank venerable, and the remaining one was a peak mid-rank venerable? 1 mid-grade Exalt Realm expert, 2 early-stage Exalt Realm experts, and 6 half-Exalt Realm experts. So many supremacies? Swoosh, 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 he only saw the void tremble? 3 people in a row? He appeared dozens of kilometers away from Han Fei. However, these people were wearing heavy armor. There were many barbs on the armor. Han Fei keenly noticed that there was poison on those sawteeth. A lethal poison that can be smeared on an Exalt Realm expert? He was afraid that it was not an ordinary poison. In their hands, all of them were wielding sawtooth machetes? The base of the scimitar was guided by spiritual energy chains, like a standard weapon. In Han Fei's eyes, it was not an ordinary standard weapon. The level of the weapon was probably as strong as a high-grade divine weapon. But a man at the high rank of the Exalt Realm? With a sinister expression, he said, "So? This tortoise demon has an accomplice, kid? Even the marauder's possessions? How dare you snatch it?" It seemed. He must be tired of living. Han Fei smiled faintly. "Oh? The resources belong to whoever snatches them. Do you think all the good things in the world belong to the marauders?" The advanced venerable narrowed his eyes slightly. "You're quite bold. Do you think you can protect the tortoise demon as an advanced venerable? And when did the human beings get along with the sea demon beast? Are you mermaids?" Han Fei frowned. "Do these people know about the mermaids?" Han Fei frowned. "Do these people know about the mermaids? It seems. I've left the Yin-Yang heavenly prison and the Waterwood heavenly prison? Even the mermaids have appeared. I'm indeed in the outside world." Han Fei immediately grinned. "It seems that you know a lot, don't you?" The faces of the 3 people on the opposite side changed slightly, and the middle-aged man raised his hand. Retreat. However, Han Fei had already come out. How could he let them retreat safely? Han Fei took a step forward and used the world's end close, appearing directly next to the middle-aged man. Poison Fang, the middle-aged man's original intention was to give the other 2 a chance to escape. He used his soul as his teeth and bit at Han Fei. Furthermore, it was clear that the spirit contained poison. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't swallow this kind of weird poison at will. Ho! At that moment, the 100-beast soul-devouring roar broke out, directly shattering the soul of Poison Fang. Han Fei stabbed out with a backhand soul-stunning spike. Puff! The middle-aged man was bleeding wildly. Carrying Han Fei's soul-stunning spike, he still wanted to retreat. However, Han Fei had already appeared in front of him and pressed his palm on his chest. Bim! In an instant, the man's battle suit shattered and all his ribs were broken. The middle-aged man was horrified. So strong. In the same realm, he didn't even have a chance to fight back. This kind of person was definitely not an ordinary person. The middle-aged man secretly wanted to crush a pearl, but Han Fei had been fooled once before. How could this kind of thing similar to a flash stone work in front of him? Han Fei pulled out the knife and the man's palm fell. Han Fei easily grabbed the pearl and took a closer look at it, and information appeared in his eyes. Name Escape Pearl Introduction, a one-time consumable with the ability to escape through space. As long as you crush this pearl, you can appear randomly somewhere within 10,000 kilometers. The escape pearl can break through the blocked void, which is its only advantage. Remarks: a basic escape treasure of ordinary quality. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly. I was wondering what this thing was. However, this kind of thing may be useful in a battle of equal strength. However, when the opponent's strength is overwhelming, it is almost impossible for the opponent to escape with this thing. The next moment, Han Fei stuck close to the middle-aged man and punched out, directly shattering half of his body. As for the void lines, they had already attached themselves to it. Han Fei seemed to have just killed an insignificant opponent. After knocking over the middle-aged man, Han Fei said lightly, "Well, this person's strength is not bad, and his defense power is also very strong. His reaction speed and soul attack skills are not bad. However, he's not a heavenly talent at all. Not at all. Come to think of it, for him to be this strong, it's probably because he's not young anymore." The old turtle said. The other two ran away. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up. "It's just an array. Let's see how powerful this ship array is." Carrying the middle-aged man in one hand, Han Fei had already come to the Marauder's big ship. Just when Han Fei was about to use the revolving star passage technique, he found that this technique failed. Is the level of this array very high? Suddenly, a sense of crisis arose in Han Fei's heart, only to see a light surging on the bow of the ship. Immediately afterward, the shark's mouth, which he thought was just a decoration, spurted out a spiritual energy shock wave comparable to that of a half-king realm. It even contained a lot of power of the Great Way. Sacrificing punch. Rumble. The terrifying explosion directly swept a range of nearly 1,000 kilometers. Han Fei was blasted back nearly 100 kilometers by this blow. However, in the end, he still stood in front of the old turtle. Even the middle-aged man in his hand was finished. He was intact. However, on the pirate ship, many people exclaimed. Someone shouted, "How is it possible? This person, with the strength of an advanced venerable, actually blocked the energy cannon of a half-king realm? Is he still a human?" On both sides of Han Fei, the seawater was like a waterfall, but behind him, the wind was calm. Han Fei shrugged and warmed up his muscles and bones with a solemn face. F***CK. It's just 100-meter-long ship. Why is it so powerful? Can this ship withstand the attack of a half-king realm cultivator? No. It's the problem of the array. There's an array that can exert the power of a half-king realm cultivator. Interesting, I have to study this. With that, Han Fei disappeared again. Although the shark's mouth seemed to be charging, Han Fei had already punched at it. Although the shark's mouth seemed to be charging, Han Fei had already punched at it. The invincible punch bombarded the ship, and an energy shield protected the entire hull. Because this energy shield contained a trace of the power of the Great Way. Therefore, Han Fei's invincible punch couldn't shake it at all. However, how could this be a problem for Han Fei? How could he always expect to defeat his opponent with one punch? With the power of the Great Way, Han Fei's strength suddenly rose. Dozens of punches in a row made the ship rumble, and the entire hull was shaking. Cracks had already appeared in some places. Han Fei thought to himself, if I can be regarded as a pirate group with this ship, then it'll be easy. I can form a one-man pirate group, so that I can have a legitimate origin. After all, pirates were also pirates in the outer sea, and no one would doubt my identity. At this time, someone exclaimed, "Your Excellency, don't go too far. Do you really want to become enemies with the marauders? If something happens to us here, the 4 kings will never let it go." 4 kings? Han Fei thought to himself, I don't care if you're the 4 kings or the 5 kings. I'm never threatened. I'll kill whoever dares to challenge me. Thud, 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 kacha. Although Han Fei still expected that this was probably just one of the ships of the so-called marauders, the grudge had already been established. He just had to kill them all. When the hull was blasted apart, Han Fei appeared directly on the hull with a star teleportation technique. That scene could be imagined. Han Fei was now as strong as a half-king realm cultivator. They were merely a few supremacies, but they were all taken down immediately. The remaining half-venerables all looked at each other in shock. Is this guy so reckless? Has the marauders become so strong that they can't even scare a single person away? Han Fei reached out and grabbed the middle-aged man again. The old turtle was still making a breakthrough on the sea, so Han Fei was not in a hurry. Han Fei sneered. Everyone, stay still. If anyone dares to make a move, try to find a way to self-destruct. Otherwise, he. Chapter 1690. As the number 1 fighter on the Avenger, Han Fei had the potential to be a pirate. As for robbing, Han Fei certainly wouldn't lose to these people. Therefore, after Han Fei robbed their ship, they didn't dare to move at all, and the only advanced venerable on the ship was easily taken down by Han Fei. Half an hour later, the old turtle broke through to the advanced venerable realm, and then he came to the ship unhurriedly. At this moment, the old turtle really wanted to swallow these people in one bite. How dare you hunt me? Why don't you take a look at yourselves? Han Fei said, keep an eye on him for me. I want to see this man's memory. Although Han Fei rarely used the soul-searching technique, it should play a role at a critical moment. For example, at this moment, Han Fei knew nothing about the outer domain. The only thing he knew was the name of the 36 Black Heavens. This was his first time here, so if he didn't know anything, he would be at a disadvantage. When Han Fei searched the middle-aged man's soul, he found that this man was also from the 36 Black Heavens. Apart from his growth experience, Han Fei quickly found a lot of useful information. First of all, Han Fei could confirm that the area he was in belonged to the infinite ocean. Yes, it was different from the infinite ocean in a broad sense. Broadly speaking, the infinite ocean referred to the endless sea, which was boundless. However, the infinite ocean that people here thought of was a narrow sense. It had a range, a space, and a route. For example, the infinite ocean was divided into the inner sea and the outer sea. People also called this place the chaotic ocean. Just like the name of the cage, some people also called the cage the chaotic ocean. Maybe it was spread by Jean Tong and the others. What separated the inner and outer sea was a vast sea area where one couldn't tell the direction. If one didn't have an accurate route and broke into that sea area from the outer sea, one would generally get lost. And in this middle-aged man's memory, there were a large number of fierce beasts living in that sea area. Even if there was a route, it was still easy to be attacked, not to mention without a route, it would be like a fly flying around randomly. And what was the difference between the inner and outer sea? The energy in the outer sea was mixed, and the spiritual energy was not as rich as that in the inner sea. Besides, there were often terrifying violent hurricanes. Once these hurricanes were formed, very unstable, it was not conducive to cultivation. And the inner sea? The spiritual energy there was rich, and although the energy was violent, human beings had their own means. It can isolate the chaotic energy, just like the islands in the cage. Apart from that, the resources in the inner sea region were extremely abundant. Although there were mermaids and some other underwater races living there, humans were equally powerful. They could stand up to the sea races. So, danger and opportunity coexist. Although the environment was cruel, but it was also very easy to grow. How could he know about this area? but after being named the Boundless Sea Domain? Han Fei clearly knew the human forces in the inland sea. Among them, the human forces in the inner region were Tai Ching, Primal Chaos, Wuji, Golden Crow, Dragon Subduing, Colored Glass, Boundless, Nine Palaces, Sword God, Dream Weaver, Profound Mystery, Medicine King, and Investiture Gods. There were a total of 13 great immortal palaces, and they were collectively known as the 13 heavens of the inner region. The human forces in the outer sea region were Thunder Fire, Ice Snow, Five Elements, Refined God, Dark Underworld, Corpse Berserk, Blood Fiend, Spectre, 100 Flowers, Blue Cloud, 10,000 Poison, Wind Slayer, and Sanskrit Sound. They were also 13 great forces, collectively known as the Outer 13 Heavens. Yes? The entire 36 profound heavens? Only 26 families remained in the chaotic Azure Sea. As for the other 10? Disappear without a trace? Not a trace at all. These 10 families were Yin-Yang Heaven, Waterwood Heaven, Thoughtless Heaven, Silvermoon Heaven, Beast King Heaven, Lihan Heaven, Feather Heaven, Ten-Color Heaven, White Cloud Heaven, and Wujin Heaven. Han Fei naturally knew about Yin-Yang Heaven and Waterwood Heaven, but the remaining 8 families should not be together with Yin-Yang Heaven and Waterwood Heaven. Of course, except for the immortal palaces in the chaotic Azure Sea, there were internal and external forces. Here, there were several super-forces that couldn't be ignored. Among them, the top 10 pirate groups were the top forces that humans and sea demons couldn't ignore. Why were they called the top 10 pirate groups? In fact, this middle-aged man knew hundreds of pirate groups, and there were tens of thousands of pirate groups in the entire chaotic Azure Sea. They had already become a super-force. In this chaotic Azure Sea, there was a well-known city of pirates called the Martial Emperor City. It was said that this city was protected by an emperor. Although there had never been an emperor in the chaotic Azure Sea, there was a legend about the Martial Emperor City. It was said that the 3 kings of the Grand Pure Immortal Palace, Chaotic Immortal Palace, and Wuji Immortal Palace tried to conquer the Martial Emperor City. As a result, after the 3 kings came back, they each went into seclusion for 10,000 years. And the Martial Emperor City was heavy, and pirates still came and went. Moreover, it was said that after that war, the Martial Emperor City not only provided for pirates to come and go, but also expanded its business to the 36 Xiantian heavens. The Martial Emperor City opened routes to the 36 Xiantian heavens in the name of business. In fact, a lot of people naturally understood that the 3 kings were probably hung up and beaten. Later, the legend of the Martial Emperor became more and more mysterious, so that the business of the Martial Emperor City was booming. The Martial Emperor City had no principles. This was a paradise for pirates. They could trade with humans and sea demons. In fact, the trade between pirates and sea demons was quite frequent. This Martial Emperor City was the unique transcendent existence in the chaotic Azure Sea. Since its establishment, no one could shake the position of the Martial Emperor City, whether it was the sea demons or the 36 Xiantian heavens. Therefore, it was not without reason that pirates were prevalent here. After all, the Martial Emperor City provided them with protection. In the Martial Emperor City, the major pirate forces also enjoyed absolute safety. No one dared to cause trouble in the Martial Emperor City. Those who dared to cause trouble were basically dead. After searching the middle-aged man's divine soul, Han Fei even saw the appearance of the Martial Emperor City. It was a huge black city built in the fog. Outside the city, there was a piece of land that stretched for thousands of miles. And the most peculiar thing was that this Martial Emperor City was half on land and the other half in the sea. Han Fei quickly searched and only remembered the names of the top 10 pirate groups, because the top 10 pirate groups were led by kings. The top 10 pirate groups were Immortal Pirate Group, Divine Church Pirate Group, Peace Pirate Group, Ravager Pirate Group, Mermaid Pirate Group, Misfortune Pirate Group, Gale Pirate Group, Azura Pirate Group, Red Fire Pirate Group, and Witch Pirate Group. Han Fei was stunned. This was ranked according to the strength of the pirate groups. This Ravager pirate group seemed to be ranked 4th among the top 10 pirate group. It looked like it was quite impressive. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. Fortunately, he hadn't killed these people yet. Otherwise, if several venerables died, what would he do if the kings came? In the middle-aged man's memory, the leader of the Ravager pirate group was called the Four Crazy Kings. As his name suggested, this person had a crazy personality. Besides, this guy desperately wanted to get into the top 3. Unfortunately, he couldn't get in. Hearing their names, Han Fei knew that they couldn't be good people. Immortal Pirate Group? He knew this. There were secrets behind it. Han Fei had some impression of the Divine Church. When he deduced the fish evolution technique, Han Fei knew this sect. It was a human who turned himself into a sea demon and founded the Divine Church. Then the Peace Pirate Group was a joke. How did you get into the top 3? The Mermaid Pirate Group was clearly a pirate group composed of sea demons. It seemed that not only humans wanted to be pirates, but also sea demons wanted to be pirates. Other than that, there was nothing special about them. Except for the name of the Witch Pirate Group, which seemed very feminine, there was nothing creative about it. In addition to the 36 mysterious heavens, the Martial Emperor City, and the top 10 pirate groups, the rest were naturally the Sea Demon forces. And the Sea Demon forces were mainly divided into the Mermaid Clan, the Seabed Human Clan, the 100 Demons Clan, and the Giant Beast Clan. Among them, Han Fei naturally knew the Mermaid Clan and the Seabed Human Clan. As expected, Xia Shaochan was in the Mermaid Clan. And the 100 Demons Clan was a mixed race other than the Mermaid Clan, collectively known as the 100 Demons Clan. There were also many sea demons who thought they were talented and refused to submit to other forces, calling themselves the 100 Demons Clan. Indeed, in this vast sea, who would be willing to submit to other races? Therefore, this race, the 100 Demons Clan, had a great difference in strength. And the Giant Beast Clan was a relatively special type of sea demons. They were few in number and had a bad relationship with the human race, sea demons, and pirate. However, the Giant Beast Clan had its strength. They could swim freely in the chaotic Azure Sea. They were also the ones who often attacked human shipping route. The Giant Beast Clan didn't like to transform, but no one knew if they could. They liked to appear in huge bodies with well-developed limbs. In fact, they also had extremely high intelligence. However, this mid-level venerable didn't know much information. There was no conflict between the Mermaid Clan, the Seabed Human Clan, and the 100 Demons Clan, and they often visited each other. However, they had their own shipping routes, so it was difficult to find them. But nominally, the 100 Demons Clan and the Seabed Human Clan lived in the Outer Sea, while the Mermaid Clan occupied the Inner Sea. This seemed to announce its dominance. From this information, Han Fei knew that the Mermaid Clan was indeed very powerful. After all, there were 13 profound heavens in the Inner Sea, and the top 10 were all there. So many kings couldn't defeat the Mermaid Clan, which was enough to show how powerful the other party was. The pirates, the Seabed Human Clan, and the 100 Demons Clan didn't have many battles. However, if they encountered the Mermaid Clan and the Giant Beast Clan, then it might be different from this complicated network. The most eye-catching one was the Martial Emperor City. This thing was like a bug. Grandma didn't care about it, and Uncle didn't love it. However, it was so powerful that no one dared to mess with it. Han Fei smiled coldly. He was sure that the main force of the raiders was not here at all. The crazy four kings might be in the Martial Emperor City, so Han Fei was immediately relieved. Without the kings, he had no opponents here. Han Fei didn't panic at all. Chapter 1691. In addition to the division of forces in the 36 mysterious heavens, Han Fei also got some other information. For example, the vortex he was in, where the Marauder's ship was located, was called the Savage Abyss. It was said that this place was connected to the savage desolate land. In the middle-aged man's memory, He didn't know that the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven were in this savage abyss. To Han Fei's surprise, in the middle-aged man's memory, someone had entered the savage abyss more than once. Yes, someone had entered here, and even a king had entered and come out. However, no one mentioned the existence of the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven, and if a king had come, where did they go? Or had someone visited the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven? It was just that. Mortals were too weak to know about it? Han Fei's heart sank. Since someone had entered and came out, it meant that the secret of the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven was probably exposed. It was just that, for some reason, no one said it out loud. Indeed, Han Fei also felt that there seemed to be something wrong with the Yin-Yang heaven. When Xia Shaochan was awakening, Chun Huangdian went to the Yin-Yang heaven. Later, other people also visited the Yin-Yang heaven, all to find Xia Shaochan. Then, if the wall of death was really unbreakable and even a king couldn't enter, then how did Chun Huangdian's projection get in? At that time, his projection was only an explorer, wasn't it? Why did he enter the Yin-Yang heaven and take Xia Shaochan away? This question made Han Fei fall into deep thought. If the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven had always been exposed, why didn't anyone mention it? Didn't the other 36 immortal palaces help? And didn't the enemies of the Yin-Yang heaven plunder it? Han Fei had a feeling that there might be some unknown secrets behind this incident. High-level Venerable Realm experts knew quite a lot of secret. From this man's memory, Han Fei found part of the route of the marauders, knew where the Martial Emperor city was, and knew how to enter the inner sea from the outer sea. However, this method of entry required the use of either the marauders' route or someone else's route. With his current strength, of course, it was impossible for him to forcibly use the route of the marauders. What if he really encountered the 4 crazy kings? He wasn't strong enough right now. His top priority now was to restore his strength. That was the right way. Then, Han Fei saw some of the middle-aged man's past experiences from his memory. These people robbed the human race. Sometimes they would also attack the 100 demon tribe and the sea humans. They might even attack the merfolk. In any case, as long as they could rob, the marauders would do it. However, the style of this pirate group, Han Fei found that although they were called raiders, they were not bloodthirsty. In the words of the 4 Mad Kings, they were all potential customers. If they let them go this time, there would be a next time. Of course, this did not mean that the marauders were soft. Every time they attacked, at least some people would die in their hand. It all depended on their preferences. Of the top 10 pirate crews, 2 were far more ruthless than the marauders. Among them, the Peace Pirate Group, which was ranked 3rd, was a pirate group with a strange name. They were a group of pirates that only occasionally robbed others. This peaceful pirate group claimed to be the end of pirates. Therefore, robbing pirates was their specialty. Moreover, he would be killed in every tribulation. The other pirate group was the Azura Pirate Group. In the middle-aged man's mind, the leader of this pirate group was obviously a demonic cultivator. He was temperamental, murderous, and extremely cruel. It was said that none of the venerables caught by the Azura pirates survived. Han Fei slowly opened his eyes and glanced at the dozen or so people on the ship. On this ship alone, there were 5 venerables. This was enough to show the strength of the marauders. And as far as Han Fei knew, although the strength of the people outside might be generally stronger, however, the venerable realm was not exaggerated to a terrifying extent. At least, from the middle-aged man, Han Fei knew that each of the 13 outer heavens had about 400 or 500 venerable realm powerhouses, and in the 13 inner heavens, each family had about 700 or 800 venerables. There were indeed a lot of them. If this number were to be placed in the yin-yang sky, it would probably disappear with just a single breath of air from each person. And this was only the number of venerables that the middle-aged man knew. It was estimated that it was also the number of venerables that the major Xian heavens had. It was hard to say how many venerables they really had. However, what horrified Han Fei was that there were so many strong masters in just the 26 major immortal palaces. There were only 10 pirate groups, and there were 10 kings. That martial emperor city could guard the chaotic ocean. Maybe there were emperors there? In that case, how many venerables did the mermaid clan have? How many kings? Similarly, Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, at the end of the Age of Gods and the Age of Doom, were the Yin-Yang sky and the Waterwood sky also so strong? Were there so many venerables? Why did they have to hide in the savage abyss? Han Fei guessed that this matter shouldn't have much to do with the nautical multitude globe. Otherwise, why would the Nine-Palace sky and the Golden Crow sky still be in the inner sea of the chaotic ocean? After sorting out his thoughts, Han Fei glanced at these people and couldn't help but say, "Leave the ship, leave the resources, leave the weapons, and leave the battle suits behind, and then get lost." The purpose of these people's trip was just to be attracted here. Because there was an anomaly in the savage abyss, which might have something to do with him. Han Fei didn't want to expose himself too much. At the beginning, he knew that the middle-aged man guessed that he was a mermaid, and he didn't deny it, so he just let these people guess blindly. At that time, the pirates were stunned. King left us here. Hey no. Boss, why didn't you let them go? Han Fei glanced at the middle-aged man under his control and said indifferently, "This man has to die." On the Marauder, the ferocious pirates were all horrified. Boss had to die, but they could live? Why was this man so weird? Seeing that they were still hesitating, Han Fei couldn't help but look displeased. In 3 seconds, those who don't leave will die. Swish, swish, swish. He watched as those people ran away very quickly. As the saying went, a wise man submits to circumstances. Now, Han Fei was invincible here. The fact that he was willing to let them go meant that there was something wrong with his brain. After all, since he dared to kill their boss, it didn't matter if he killed them. Sure enough, after those people fled, Han Fei waved his hand and said, "Old Yuan, you have just broken through to the advanced venerable realm, and your realm is not stable yet. This man is yours." A smile appeared on the old turtle's face, but he was not in a hurry. Instead, he asked, "Why did you let those people go? Isn't this releasing fish to the sea? Sooner or later, they will come again." Han Fei smiled faintly. "I'm new here. There's no need for me to offend a king. I'm here to find people, not to kill a king. Of course, it shouldn't be a problem to kill 1 or 2. This man's soul is controlled by me. I don't want to expose this ability." Han Fei reached out and grabbed the Sun Moon shells, weapons, battle suits, and other equipment that were left in midair. After a brief glance, he found as many as 80 dark moon wolf fish among the Sun Moon shells, all of which had just died. Those dark moon pearls hadn't been used yet. Han Fei certainly wouldn't swallow these dark moon pearls without hesitation. After a while, when Han Fei's soul power increased by more than 3,000 points, he couldn't help but grin and sigh. "So many venerables, but you only caught these few fish? How dare you call yourself a pirate? And ranked 3rd? You're a disgrace to pirate." The old turtle. As for the other resources accumulated by these people, they were things that Han Fei basically didn't need. In addition to some escape pearls, in addition to refining materials and spiritual fruits, there were also nearly 100,000 ultra-quality spiritual stones. The moment he saw the ultra-quality spiritual stones, Han Fei thought to himself, the spiritual stone resources here seem to be very developed. Putting them away, Han Fei turned his head and said, "Okay, you've made a breakthrough. Help me keep an eye on them for a while. I'm about to recover to the peak of the venerable realm, but you interrupted me." The old turtle said leisurely, "Go ahead. I'll swallow this man." Han Fei didn't even need to change places. During this time, he deliberately didn't come out of the vortex. At least, he could appear in his peak state. After all, he didn't bring little Fatty with him. Otherwise, if he was killed, he wouldn't be able to resurrect. 2 months later. When Han Fei came out of Forge the Universe, His strength had recovered to the demi-king realm. As soon as his strength returned, Han Fei immediately came out of seclusion. The old turtle said in surprise, "So fast?" Han Fei said lightly, "You're right. Disassembling spiritual energy can indeed speed up the recovery of my strength." "Oh right, you said that you're suppressing that power. Do you want to release it?" The old turtle said, "I'm afraid not for the time being. I can release some of it to you first." Han Fei thought to himself, "Are you looking down on me? My current endurance is beyond your imagination, okay?" In the next moment, no one knew what the old turtle did, but with a hum, Han Fei's body trembled unconsciously. A massive amount of pure energy instantly spread to his limbs and bones. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. When Han Fei found that he was getting fatter, he quickly shouted, "Stop, stop, stop! That's enough. This has already affected my strength." Hearing Han Fei's shout, the old turtle suppressed the power again. Han Fei couldn't help but say in horror, "No, old Yuan. Why is there so much power? How much have you released?" The old turtle said leisurely, 2 or 3%. Han Fei. Chapter 1692. Han Fei was speechless. How much force did he bear in order to leave the cage? He couldn't even bear it with his current strength of the half-king realm. This energy was not ordinary energy. This kind of power was like the fat in the human body compared to the great Tao. Ordinary fighting? You didn't need it at all. You could only absorb it slowly by yourself. You needed to exercise from time to time. In fact, you could only absorb it slowly by constantly sharpening it in battles. Just as the old turtle had said, unless he practiced the great mystery body now. Otherwise, how could he digest and absorb this thing now? The level of difficulty wasn't just a little high. Han Fei didn't hesitate too much. If he couldn't digest it quickly, he would digest it slowly. After all, he hadn't reached the peak of the half-king realm yet. There was still a lot of room for improvement. Han Fei found that no one had come to him for more than 2 months. It seemed that the death of a venerable was not a big deal for the pirates. Therefore, Han Fei released the marauder pirate ship. There were many things he could learn from this ship. The Avenger that he had built back then was far inferior to this ship. The Avenger was a complicated ship array piled up by countless arrays. However, this ship was different. This ship had activated a defensive barrier, and there was no messy and complicated array formation at all. Obviously, it didn't mean that this ship didn't need arrays, but that the other party put the arrays in other places that couldn't be seen. Besides, this ship had an energy cannon that could launch an attack with the power of a half-king realm. What was that thing filled with? Considering that in the chaotic vast sea, you either had to take someone else's ship or have your own ship. If you took someone else's ship, except for the pirate ship, you could only go to the outer 13 heavens. Then you could take someone else's ship and go to the inner area. This was more complicated. After all, if you took someone else's ship, they had a fixed route. You couldn't go wherever you wanted. And there was actually a problem with using your own ship. The most important thing was that you didn't have a route. Although Han Fei knew the route of the marauder pirate ship, if he foolishly ran to their route, wouldn't he be courting death? After all, every safe route was artificially created and recognized by the major races. Otherwise, wouldn't you, a human, be asking for trouble by foolishly running into the territory of the merfolk race and invading their territorial waters? However, Han Fei had the navigator. He could open up a waterway by himself. Although the navigational panorama could only be used 3 times a day, this kind of directional route usually only needed one direction. Generally speaking, having a boat was better than not having a boat. Although he had robbed the raider's ship, he hadn't made up his mind yet because it seemed safe to take the normal route. Those normal sea routes were also the normal trade routes of the 13 heavens. The trade of resources between the inner and outer seas created the prosperity of the 36 Xuantians. It was also because of the prosperity of trade that pirates would rob others from time to time. It was the same principle. In the chaotic Azure Sea, Those who dared to sail on these normal routes were basically not afraid of pirates. It could even be said that there were often people who specialized in sniping pirates on the sea route. After all, a pirate king would not participate in ordinary robberies. Their actions were being watched by many pairs of eyes. Once a pirate king took action, he often became the enemy of the world. For this reason, the strength of the top 10 pirate groups had also changed many times. In the middle-aged man's memory, the Azura Pirates was the only pirate group that often had a pirate king but had not been wiped out. However, the Azura Pirates were so hated by everyone that they ranked 8th among the top 10 pirate group. When Han Fei took out this ship, a smile unconsciously appeared on the corner of his mouth. It was really a long-lost feeling. He would become a captain again. This feeling was wonderful. The phantoms of mountains and rivers appeared, and Xiao Sei and Yen emerged in the phantoms. In Yen arms there was a big white rabbit. Yen said in surprise, "Ah, brother, are we finally out?" Han Fei smiled slightly. "Yen, good girl. In the future, we will have our own territory. Look, this is my spoil of war, a big ship." A big ship? Yen ran to the side of the ship with the rabbit in her arms. Looking at the surging waves, she seemed a little excited. She was also very curious about such a world. Although she had known about the ghost ship before, she had never been out herself. So, what did a captain look like? It was the first time that Yen had seen one. He heard her running from the south to the north, from the beginning to the end, curious about everything. Yen kept asking, "Brother, what is this? It's so high." "This is a mast." "What about this?" "That's a crossbar. It's used to fix the side and rear rope." Yen asked, "What's a rope?" "It's a rope or chain that hangs the mast." "What about this?" "This is an anchor. When the ship is about to stop, throw the anchor into the sea. The huge anchor hooks the boulders on the seamount and can pull the hull to stop the ship." This question and answer were quite smooth. After all, Han Fei was an old captain. He could blurt out such a simple question without thinking. Then Han Fei took out a row of big pots to attract Yen's attention. Han Fei really didn't want to be a pirate at this moment. In fact, he came here to find his sister, and he had to go back. So, he didn't want to be a pirate. Han Fei changed the sails to beige-white, replaced the shark head bow, and replaced it with a steel triangular head, which was used to cleave the wind and break the waves. Of course, in the center of the triangular head, there was an energy cannon that could exert a strike from a demi-king. While cooking the hot pot, Han Fei was also multitasking. He forged in the void and changed the symbols of the pirate ships, such as the anchors, the masts, the axles on the deck, and so on. Of course, Han Fei hadn't studied arrays yet. After a while brushing oil on the barbecue, Han Fei said to Yen, "What is the time armor? Can you tell me about it?" Hearing this, Yen squatted beside Han Fei, almost drooling, and said without thinking, "Well, there are many ways to use it. For example, you can block the dislocated time in front of you. When people hit you, they will hit another time. Also, you can slow down or speed up the surrounding time. In this way, the power of others' attacks will be out of your control." "Brother, what are we eating?" Han Fei nodded. "This is called charcoal grilled garlic prawns, teppanyaki squid, lobster hot pot." "Don't rush, we have to wait for a while." "Hey Yen, how do you use the time shackles?" Yen blinked and said, "Just like this. Intercept a period of time and use it to tie people up, so that the time before and after overlaps, forming an infinite barrier of time. In this way, people are trapped. However, people who are more powerful can break free at once." Han Fei's heart surged. "It sounds interesting. However, it's too difficult to intercept time, and I can't do it yet." Han Fei asked, "What about time transformation?" Xiao Sei watched from the side, feeling speechless. "You're already a demi-king, but you're fooling a child? Aren't you ashamed?" After a while, the hot pot was ready. Han Fei, Nian Old Yuan, and Xiao Se sat around the hot pot. Among them, Nian had already started eating. Her garlic prawns had long been roasted. At this moment, his mouth was full of grease, and his lips were sticky from the food. Han Fei used the god-deceiving precious technique to reduce his strength to that of a beginner venerable. Han Fei said, "Remember the purpose of our trip. Don't make trouble and don't fight easily. You can hunt marine creatures, but don't make enemies with strong masters, especially pirates." Well, that's it. From today on, I will pretend to be a genius master of a big family. Old Yuan, Xiao Se, both of you are now my followers. If there's anything, I won't do anything. Let's find a place to dock in the 13 heavens and go there. This trip will be half a success. Understand? The old turtle couldn't help saying, "As long as you don't make trouble." Xiao Se nodded. Okay. However, it's best to let little masters stay in human society for some time to adapt to the human world. After all, little master's real realm is actually not weak. It won't take long for her to break through the realm of peak-level law enforcer. We can't wait until little master's strength reaches the peak before we teach her some life skills. Han Fei said lightly, "Life is everywhere. What's important is the communication between people. I can tell that you don't know how to take care of children. Find a school for them and let them study for half a year. That's more effective than you talking to them." Xiao Se glanced at Xiao Se grumpily, thinking, "Who will take care of the child, me or you?" Han Fei said, "Let's get down to business. Let's stick to the principle of not making trouble. Let's leave here today and go to other territories of the 36 heavens first." Less than half an hour after Han Fei said this, suddenly, Han Fei and the old turtle both turned their heads. Immediately, Han Fei got up and said, "Son of AB*TCH. It's only the first day I've been out and I've been targeted again? Is there a GPS on this ship?" The void shook, and with a swish, 3 large ships broke out of the void in a row. The hulls of these 3 large ships showed very clean silver armor. However, they didn't seem to belong to the Ravagers, did they? The other party's ship was obviously different from the ship that he robbed. The other party's ship looked cleaner and shiny. With a large piece of lobster meat in her mouth, Little Time looked at the big ship opposite curiously and said, "Brother, a ship is coming." Han Fei narrowed his eyes and said lightly, "Nian, remember, don't show your strength casually." In the next moment, 7 or 8 women appeared in a row with a swoosh. The person in the lead clearly had the strength of a half-king. One of the women said, "Sister Wu, look, this is the person I told you about last time. He's only a junior venerable, but he's extremely strong." The woman called Sister Wu glanced at the barrels on the hull of Han Fei's ship, slightly puzzled. A subordinate of the crazy 4 kings? Why has the ship been changed like this? The woman took a step forward and directly stepped in front of Han Fei's ship. "Who are you? Tell me the truth." Han Fei saw that there seemed to be light surging on the 3 ships of the other party, which seemed to be something similar to energy cannons. So, the other party was going to attack them? And this time, the other party had a half-king. Han Fei looked at the ship in the distance, and there seemed to be a woman standing on the bow of the ship, who was probably not a simple character. Phew, Han Fei was speechless. Is my luck so bad after leaving the Yin-Yang heaven? It was obvious that they had encountered the witch pirates. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1693. Han Fei was speechless. So, the people he met last time should be from the witch pirates? Han Fei felt that there were 10,000 iron-head fish galloping in his heart. What day is this? I just got out of the cage. Why am I so unlucky? My strength was suppressed, and it took me 7 or 8 months to recover. As soon as he came up, he encountered 2 major pirate groups and a lot of strong masters. What? Do you think there are treasures in the savage abyss? Do you all want to come here to make some money? At this moment, Han Fei concluded that there should be 2 strong masters on these 3 big ships. Just based on the size of the ships, the Demoness pirate group's 3 ships were at least 3 times larger than the one he was on. For pirates, the hulls shouldn't be too big. For example, the dragon boat should be big, right? But it was also bulky. Compared to his own, their ships were big, which was a symbol of their rank. At this moment, the girl called Sister Wu was shouting at Han Fei. Han Fei had read the basic information of the witch pirates from the memory of the middle-aged man. The witch pirates were a pirate group that only accepted female pirates, and the queen of the witch pirates was called the Black Phoenix Demon. She had 4 generals under her command, each leading the 4 strongest warships. These warships were named after the captains, namely, Pearl, Dragon Dance, Cloud Rising, and Cold Moon. And now Han Fei was right. This person should be one of the 4 generals of the witch pirates, the captain of the Dragon Dance, Long Wu herself. But Han Fei looked at the woman standing on the big ship behind him. Her aura seemed to be comparable to Long Wu's. When Han Fei took a closer look, he realized that what was glowing on that ship didn't seem to be an energy cannon. What was it if it wasn't a pearl? Ha ha! If Han Fei guessed correctly, that should be the pearl, right? Han Fei didn't know if it was because he forced himself to use the 9-palace ruler of destiny, so he was still unlucky now. 2 of the Demoness pirate crew's 4 great generals had appeared. Was it really because he made too much noise when he came out? But why didn't he feel anything? Hey, I'm asking you a question. Someone laughed and said, I'm afraid you're scared, silly. Women. This was especially so for women who were pirates. Not only were they impatient, but they were also fierce. Han Fei was stunned for a moment before he began to ramble. Han Fei thought to himself, if I run away now, it's definitely not too late. However, Nian or Xiaosei and Old Yuan were still here. When he stored them in the sea-quelling painting, they might attack. Even if they could escape, the ship would definitely be gone. This was a ship that he had just snatched, and he hadn't had time to study it yet. How did these people find him? How could he appear here with his ship? Unfortunately, he didn't have the time to think about these problems. It was impossible to escape. The 2 demi-monarchs should not be a match for him. But the problem was, once he killed the 2 generals of the Demoness pirate crew, the Black Phoenix Demoness would definitely fly into a rage and chase him to the ends of the earth. Baji! Nian stood beside Han Fei and ate the garlic prawns in her mouth. She looked at Long Wu and the other venerables and then at Han Fei. Brother, are these the legendary bad guys? Han Fei was amused. What a poor child. Even the bad guys only existed in legends. As for Long Wu and the rest, they were confused. Why did this person come out with a child? This child looked very young, but his strength had already reached the peak level of the venerable realm? Someone couldn't help but squint. Sister Wu, did the soul ball of the marauders kidnap some heavenly talent? Someone nodded. This child is too cute. He's so beautiful. He's obviously not from this world. Someone agreed. Yes. Sister Wu, this child is so cute. He must have been kidnapped by these people. Hearing this, Han Fei frowned and glanced at Nian. Suddenly, he thought of something and snorted, What a bunch of bitches. Why are you still nagging? Kidnap a child? That's so mean. You are the Demoness pirate crew. Is that all you can do? A woman sneered. Haha. Boy, you know we are the Demoness pirate crew. Why are you so arrogant? It seems that you are ready to be fed to the fish. A woman wasn't worried about the danger at all and sneered. What? The strongest of you is only an advanced venerable. Kid, why are you still so arrogant? How proud and arrogant was the old tortoise. When he was called that tortoise, he was about to explode. Seeing the old turtle blurt out, Han Fei immediately said, Old Huang, that's enough. I can't beat them. What's wrong with me saying a few words? Han Fei rubbed Nian-er's head and said, Nian-er, be a good girl. Whether they are bad or not depends on whether they do bad things or not. You continue to eat. It's just a small problem now. The woman who had been chased by Han Fei before said, Small problem, I'm afraid you don't know your current situation? By the way, didn't you say that you are an old monster more than 4,000 years old? And when I saw you last time, I didn't see this sea monster old turtle and this child beside you. Han Fei rolled his eyes at her. What do you know? I don't know you. How can I tell you the truth? Han Fei sneered. His whole body shook, spiritual energy fluctuated, and air waves surged under his body. Han Fei said, Okay. Since you want to know who I am, then I am not afraid to tell you. I am a legend wandering in the chaotic sea in pursuit of delicious food, the explorer of the best taste in the world, the master of smell and taste, and the coexistence of talent and wisdom. Klang Long Wu held out a big spear in her hand and looked at Han Fei coldly. One more nonsense and you will die. Han Fei paused and then waved his hand. You are so boring. Okay, since you want to know, I have to reveal my top secret identity that I have hidden for many years. Clang. Seeing a flash of silver light, Han Fei felt that the woman was about to stab him with her spear. Han Fei immediately roared, I, Han Fei, am the Chef King. The group of female nobles looked at each other in dismay. They were stunned for a long time before they burst into laughter. Someone sneered. Are you stupid? You call yourself a Chef King? Who on earth gave you the courage? Someone curled her lips. I hate that kind of braggart the most. Sister Wu, kill him. Hey, 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 Han Fei waved his hand and immediately shouted. I said you are a group of silly women. I said I am the Chef King, not a sea pioneer king. In the art of cooking, there is absolutely no one in the world who can be mentioned in the same breath as me. Even the martial emperors of the martial emperor city have to admit defeat. Long Wu, the female venerables. Seeing that these women were speechless, Han Fei clenched his fist, and the garlic prawns that were still being grilled on the grill flew towards Long Wu and the others. Han Fei sneered. You don't seem to have seen the world. How dare you laugh at me when you haven't even tasted my dishes? Han Fei combed the hair between his eyebrows with a disdainful smile. Because Han Fei was a half-king realm powerhouse, he was really not afraid of them. Even if these people insisted on attacking him, he could at most kill them all at once. As for the pursuit of the Xian Feng demon girl, where could she go? Long Wu pinched a garlic prawn with her fingers. When the fragrance of garlic drifted into her nostrils, the corner of her mouth twitched. How many years has it been since the last time she ate seriously? Today, she was actually tempted by such a low-level shrimp? Long Wu stretched out her hand and was about to take a bite when someone beside her said, Sister Wu, be careful. Long Wu said lightly, Do you think I am afraid of poison? With that, Long Wu took a bite gently. Suddenly, she only felt that her mouth was full of fragrance, and she was shocked. This thing, a little shrimp, can be so delicious? The female venerables looked at Long Wu's reaction, and Long Wu saw that Han Fei and Nian were looking at her eagerly. Nian also took a bite of the shrimp meat and said, Brother, you gave everything to the sisters. Han Fei said seriously, Nian, you have to understand these sisters. They have never eaten good food in their lives. How pitiful are they? Nian thought of when she was on the side of the abyssal chasm, she could only eat energy. Those days were so hard. Nian nodded frantically. She even waved at Long Wu and said, Sister, you are so pitiful. Why don't you follow Brother in the future? Brother will make a lot of delicious food. Look, this is a piece of ginseng. After that, Nian took out a fish skin bag of potato chips, which were all made with seasoning. As she spoke, Nian took a bite and said, Big sister, it's delicious. Long Wu subconsciously took another bite of the garlic prawn. As a result, she realized that she had actually taken another bite after she had bitten it. Immediately, Long Wu snorted softly. It's just cooking, however. Long Wu's next sentence stunned all the honored ladies. She said, The ship has been confiscated by the Demoness pirate group. You guys board the dragon dance. Don't you know how to cook? In the future, there will be a place for you to cook. Han Fei's face changed drastically. Hey! Wait, what do you mean by that? I, Han Fei, am the king of chefs. You want me to cook for you every day? You? Seeing Long Wu looking at him fiercely, Han Fei immediately snorted. Okay. I can temporarily go to your ship and let you taste the delicacies of the human world. But you want me to stay on your ship all the time? That's impossible. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter.